Chapter 320. It was late at night, but the little girl, who was having a good time, was not sleepy at all. She had just taken a bath, and was still in high spirits. If it were any other day, she would have pestered her father to tell her stories. But today, she did not want to listen to stories. She could not wait to climb onto the big bed, put the pillow on the bed, and then got into bed and covered herself with the quilt. Yang had just finished cleaning up the mess downstairs and came upstairs. He and Murphy looked at their daughter with amusement. The little girl lay down and closed her eyes. After a while, she could not help but open her eyes and turn her head to make sure the big socks were hung up properly. She was not relieved until she was sure. At this time, she saw her parents standing at the door and looking at her. She thought her parents were worried about her, so she waved her hand seriously and said, "Papa, Mom, good night. She is going to sleep." Yang and Murphy knew the reason. The little girl was looking forward to the arrival of Santa Claus. It was still because of the lie that Mo Fei told Cici in order to make her sleep. Cici naively thought that if she didn't fall asleep, then when Santa Claus passed by in the early morning, he really wouldn't come down to give her a gift. So she had to go to sleep early. Even if she could not fall asleep, she had to close her eyes so that Santa Claus would not forget her. "Good night, baby," Murphy said softly. She pulled Yang and the two went to the study. On Christmas Eve, Yang Huan took an early shower and went to her room. "I have a present for you today." Murphy pressed Yang down on the chair, and then took out a big box that Mo Shaowan brought over today. She looked at Yang and said embarrassedly, "For me? Aren't Christmas presents supposed to be opened together tomorrow?" Yang was a little surprised. He had prepared Christmas presents for both Murphy and Xi. That's a Christmas gift. The holiday we're going to celebrate should be Christmas Eve. Mo Fei knew what Christmas Eve meant to lovers. She blushed slightly, bit her lower lip gently and said embarrassedly, "It's my first time celebrating Christmas Eve. Can't you accompany me?" If Valentine's Day was the beginning of every girl's romance, then Christmas Eve was the beginning of every woman's romance. Murphy also longed to spend Christmas Eve with her beloved. Now there is finally one. Although she is no longer young, her desire for romance has not faded. Of course. Why wouldn't he accompany you? Yang looked at Murphy's anxious mood, and his heart softened. He nodded and agreed, while trying to think of what kind of Christmas Eve gift to Murphy. "Open my present first and see if you like it." Murphy looked at Yang expectantly. She had put in a lot of effort to prepare this present. Yang was also a little curious. Generally speaking, weren't Christmas Eve gifts apple or chocolate? What was in Murphy's big box? The ribbons, wrapping paper and box were peeled off layer by layer like an onion, and the shape of the gift inside was revealed. Although Yang had already roughly seen it, it was not until the last layer of film was completely uncovered that he said with some surprise, "Violin? You're giving me a violin?" This violin was very beautiful. Although it looked similar to other violins, the wood of its panel, in the eyes of Yang, was definitely the top naturally air-dried spruce. Moreover, it was not a new violin that was just found in recent years. It should have been carefully cared for and maintained. Although it was as smooth as new, the violin itself seemed to exude a kind of spirituality, a musical charm that had settled down after being played for a long time. It sounded very mysterious, but Yang could feel that in his previous life, he had collected a violin that was even better than this one. It spanned 300 to 400 years of history. Antonio Stradivari's violin was originally going to be buried in the warehouse of a Middle Eastern tribal chief, but it was stolen by Yang later. Thinking about it, Yang still felt that it was a pity. If he was no longer around, could that precious violin still find a suitable person to love and care for it? Last year, when I was in the United States, I accidentally bought it from a pawnshop merchant. The original owner was a very famous violin player abroad, Steve Van. I don't know if you have heard of him, but this is the instrument that he became famous for. But after he died of illness, his family sold it to the pawnshop in order to pay off the debt. Murphy gently stroked the violin and said softly. Obviously, with such a clear origin, Murphy did not have the opportunity to pick up a bargain. She still spent a lot of money to buy this violin. When she bought it last year, Murphy bought it for herself. She also likes the violin very much. She has been learning the violin and piano since she was a child. However, in her hands, this violin was still a bit of a waste, because after buying it back, Murphy did not have much opportunity to use it. She spent all her time on her career as a singer. I know you can play the violin. The song Long Time No See has a violin accompaniment, but you don't have a suitable violin, so I want to give it to you, Murphy said with some apprehension. She was worried that this gift was not brand new. Would Yang Yi like it? However, Murphy was right. Yang Yi did not buy a violin for a long time, because he had not chosen a satisfactory one. It did not matter whether the gift was brand new or not. What was important was Murphy's feelings for Yang Yi. Her words really touched Yang Yi. Yang Yi put down the violin in his hand. He stood up, hugged Murphy's face, and kissed her fiercely. This was a kiss that was not mixed with any eroticism. The kiss was very forceful and affectionate. When he let go, Murphy's face was as red as a peach. She was panting and couldn't help but hit Yang Yi's chest. She was shy and reproachful. You know me well. Yang Yi laughed, hugged her in his arms, and said in her ear. He really liked this gift. Murphy had known Yang Yi for so long. She had never seen Yang Yi lose his self-control like this. But this kind of loss of self-control was good. Murphy was also full of joy. She felt that she had given the most valuable gift. After Yang Yi let go of Murphy, he put the violin on his left shoulder, and casually pulled the bow a few times to test its tone. Naturally, there was nothing to say about the timbre. It was not as good as Yang Yi's masterpiece from his previous life, but it was still better than 90% of the violins in the world. Yang Yi was already satisfied. I'll play a song for you. I originally had a draft in my mind. Today, when I saw your gift, I perfected it. Yang Yi suddenly turned his head and excitedly said to Murphy, I didn't prepare any gift for you. This violin song I composed for you is a Christmas Eve gift for you, okay? Murphy was pleasantly surprised. For her, a song composed for her was better than any gift. She quickly nodded and happily asked, What song is it? Do you have a name? Yes, it's called Praise of Love, Note 1. Yang Yi nodded. With that, Yang Yi took a deep breath, immersed himself, and began his performance. At the beginning, it was a long and beautiful melody, with a strong serenade style. The delicate sound of the violin was full of affection, as if it was a lover's entanglement, gradually opening this elegant picture of love. It was the first time Murphy saw Yang Yi play the violin. Yang Yi did not let her down. Although the appearance of a 1.87-meter-tall man playing the violin was somewhat funny, Murphy was intoxicated. The person who played such a beautiful melody was her beloved man. After entering the B section, the melody became softer, and there was a melancholy mood in the softness. However, this mood was not sad. It was like the sweet and sour taste of love. Happiness spread out in this melody. Murphy listened attentively. At this moment, she was in a trance, as if she was sitting in a wide theater, sitting below the stage, listening to Yang Yi's performance on the stage. Finally, back to the theme of the A section, there was a big twist, and the mood burst. And after the change, the rhythm was meaningful, and the mood became more and more complicated. The music gradually slowed down and lightened, like a lover's whisper, gradually stopped in the gentle melody. Murphy was a person who loved music. She naturally understood the feelings that Yang Yi put into the performance. Praise of love. Wasn't it describing the love between them? Wasn't love the beginning of a vigorous operation? And finally gradually walked into a dull. But was that the dull lingering? Wasn't such a dull love what she and he were looking forward to? This wonderful gift was destined to ignite the beauty of tonight's Christmas Eve. Without the apple, would Eve and Adam just sit face to face? Chapter 321. Although Christmas was a holiday for foreigners, for office workers who wanted to have a holiday for 365 days of the year, it was reasonable for them to have a holiday. However, there was no such thing as a Christmas holiday in Zhao Yu's previous life, let alone in this world. Other than Yang Yi, the good boss of China, who generously gave Ding Xiang and Yang Huan some money for their activities, the rest of the people went to work or kindergarten. Yang Yi sent Shishi to kindergarten and coincidentally bumped into Boss Lan, who was personally sending his daughter to kindergarten. Before Yang Yi could tease him, Lan Xiaokai complained. Yang Yi, you brat, you're finally here. It turned out that he was there to stop Yang Yi. Not only did Boss Lan come to stop Yang Yi personally, but he also brought his own bodyguards. Of course, this was just a joke. The bodyguards didn't come up at all. They were dozens of meters away from the car, indifferent. What happened? Yang Yi asked, puzzled. I didn't trick you when I asked you to invest in Sahara Online Mall. Sahara Online Mall had been doing a lot of things in December. It had announced its own express delivery situation and plans, as well as the New Year's Day shopping carnival that had just started nationwide TV advertising. It had become the most popular internet company at the moment. With such high popularity, Sahara Online Mall's daily sales were also increasing. Before the New Year's Day shopping carnival was announced, Sahara Online Mall's overall valuation had exceeded 600 million. After the carnival was announced, Sahara Online Mall's market value was unstoppable. It could be said that with Lan Xiaokai's participation in the first round of financing, even if he hadn't recovered his capital, he didn't have to worry about losing money at all. With this momentum, Lan Xiaokai only had to worry about whether he would still have a share in the second round of financing. However, Lan Xiaokai didn't stop him today to talk about business. He gritted his teeth and said, "You didn't trick me, but your daughter did." With Lan Xiaokai's bitter description, Yang Yi finally understood what had happened. It turned out that she told Lan Xian about Santa Claus yesterday, and Lan Xian really believed it. After she went home, she picked out her longest pair of socks and hung them up. Yes, originally, only one sock was needed, but Lan Xian was a little greedy. She hoped that Santa Claus would give her 2 gifts, so 2 socks were hung on the bedside. Lan Xian didn't tell her parents about this at all. She was afraid that her parents would drive her Santa Claus away if they knew. The little girl was very devout. According to Yang Luoqi, before waiting for Santa Claus to give her a present, she had to make a wish. Only then would Santa Claus know what she wanted. So Lan Xian even drew what she wanted on 2 small pieces of paper. It could be said that she was very attentive. With such sincerity, even the Buddha would be moved, right? But the non-existent Santa Claus obviously wasn't moved. Early in the morning, Lan Xian, who was still in a daze, thought of Santa Claus and quickly opened the sock to take a look. But it was empty. The higher the expectation, the greater the disappointment. Lan Xian suddenly felt so sad that she burst into tears. With her voice, the whole villa was about to be overturned. It's all because of you. You told your daughter about Santa Claus. Lan Xiaokai spent a lot of effort to find out the reason from his daughter this morning. He also hurriedly asked someone to buy a gift from a clothes store for Lan Xian. Only then did he coax his heartbroken daughter. How could he not be full of resentment towards Yang Yi? Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only teach him a way. When you go back tonight, ask someone to write an apology letter. The letter will probably say that the Santa Claus in charge of Xian Air overslept last night. He said that he was sorry that he couldn't let such a lovely and obedient child get her gift on time, and he will make up for it today. Then, when Xian Air falls asleep at night, you can put the letter on her bedside with the gift. When she sees it tomorrow, you can read the letter to her. You believe in the lies of Santa Claus? Why don't you just tell her the truth? Lan Xiaokai felt a little incredulous. She's a child. It's good to let her have some beautiful imagination. Believe me, Xian Air is more willing to believe in the existence of Santa Claus. If you tell her that Santa Claus doesn't exist, she will blame you. Yang Yi laughed. Lan Xiaokai left. Yang Yi didn't know the specific effect, but she fooled her little friend. This became an interesting episode of this sweet and happy Christmas. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was the last day of the year. On this day, Tian Mei held a grand press conference to announce the cover and song titles of Murphy's latest album, First Dream, and also announced that Murphy's new album would be released on the first day of New Year's Day. Many media came. Because this album was hyped up by the Internet Water Army before it was released, it was very controversial. So the media reporters also asked Murphy about this issue. If it was before, Murphy might not be able to withstand the bombardment of these media, and even be angry because of their contempt for Mu Xiang when they asked questions. But after experiencing that night on Christmas Eve, Mo Fei seemed to have been enlightened, and her mentality became better. She learned to calmly face other people's doubts, and began to understand the right way to deal with the gains and losses on her music path. Even if others scolded her badly, so what? Didn't she continue to make her own music? Even if a record couldn't get platinum, so what? As long as people liked her music and were willing to come to her concert and cheer for her singing, that was enough. Everything was because she had Yang Yi behind her. With Yang Yi, she didn't have to care about other people's criticism at all. So even if a media reporter stood up and asked in a very positive tone, "Murphy, now there are many voices questioning you on the internet, and some people say that you are trying to hype yourself by self-deprecating means. What do you think of this matter?" Murphy could also respond calmly, "It's just rumors on the internet. Please wait until you finish listening to my album, and then look back at these voices that once questioned me. Murphy, I'm a self-media person signed by Micro Broadcasting, Water Spinach." A reporter who asked the question introduced himself in a very strange way, and he successfully attracted everyone's attention. "There are rumors on the internet that you and Mu Xiang have a close relationship, so there were reports of you quarreling with reporters because of Mu Xiang's news. How do you respond to this matter?" Murphy was stunned for a moment. She blamed Yang Yi in her heart for not telling her that he was Mu Xiang. In the end, she had already clarified her relationship with Mu Xiang on Fast Music. No matter how she said it now, there was still a problem. Now was not the time to announce their relationship. Murphy hesitated for a moment, and could only vaguely say, "Mr. Mu Xiang is a very good person. I have a good relationship with him in real life, and he has written so many songs for me. Now that he is suffering the violence of public opinion, I have to explain to the reporters that others have slandered him." After the press conference, Murphy found Mo Shawan and urged her to send her home quickly. "Sister, you're going to Beijing tomorrow to hit the charts. Are you sure you don't want to have a good rest?" Mo Shawan was very distressed. "It's okay. I'll take the earliest flight tomorrow morning. I can still make it." Murphy smiled a little tiredly. "But tonight is Shishi's first performance. I can't be absent. I've already promised her." Chapter 322. Sigh. This chapter was added because this killer was a little cold. The title was wrong, so I can't change it. Springfield Kindergarten's New Year's Eve party was held on New Year's Eve, just like the Spring Festival party was held on New Year's Eve. Yang Yi spent the whole day with Shishi in the hotel auditorium, where the New Year's Eve party was held. He was with the teacher and other children, preparing for the performance in the evening. As a qualified stay-at-home dad, Yang Yi also showed his skills in braiding hair. Therefore, he also worked as a hairstylist for the children in the middle class. Not only did Shishi braid her father's hair, but all the little girls in the class also lined up and couldn't wait for Uncle Yang to braid a beautiful hairstyle for them. Originally, Yang Yi was more popular in this class. Now, these children were about to fight for Uncle Yang. If fathers could be changed, perhaps every little girl would want to change their father to Uncle Yang Yi, who could tell stories, cook delicious food, and dress up for them. In fact, Yang Yi had other invitations today. Du Yuanlei had already studied the script and made a detailed shooting plan and preparations. She planned to start shooting on the last day of the year, because shooting on New Year's Eve was a good omen to bring in the old and welcome the new. Sure enough, many directors were superstitious. Unfortunately, Yang Yi had to attend his daughter's New Year's Eve performance and couldn't attend. When he received the invitation a few days ago, he declined it. Moreover, he really didn't like these red tape. Even if Du Yuanlei arranged to start shooting at another time, he didn't want to attend. At most, Yang Yi liked to watch them shoot and satisfy his desire to understand the shooting process. Therefore, Du Yuanlei didn't need to postpone the shooting plan for Yang Yi, the investor and screenwriter. According to the original plan, after the ceremony ended today, Du Yuanlei immediately arranged the first day of shooting for Fairy Tale. When Murphy rushed to the hotel after the press conference, the sky was already as dark as ink. The good news was that the night was the best disguise. In the winter, she was wrapped in a big windbreaker with the collar up half of her face. In addition, she was wearing a mask. As long as there were no paparazzi following her, Murphy wouldn't be recognized so easily. Where's Shishi? Have you had dinner? Although Murphy was very tired, she still cared about her daughter and Yongyi first. The teacher took them to the waiting room to do their makeup. There was only one makeup artist, so it was very slow. Shishi was with the other children. Their dinner had already been arranged. I'll wait for you to eat together. Are you hungry? Yongyi took the bag from Murphy's hands and said with concern. Yongyi knew that Murphy was in a hurry and didn't have time to eat, so he led Murphy to a private room in the hotel restaurant. He had ordered the dishes at the right time and asked the waiter to serve the dinner just before Murphy arrived. Now all the dishes were still hot. When Murphy removed her disguise and took off her windbreaker, Yongyi scooped a bowl of hot soup for her. Let's not talk about me. You're starving too. Hurry up and eat. I still want to see Shishi later. Murphy picked up a large drumstick for Yongyi and said with concern. The two of them were indulging in their love when the door was suddenly pushed open. A bold and hearty laugh came from the doorway. Ha ha ha, old brother Yang, you're not being kind. You're eating alone here and didn't even call me. Murphy was a little flustered. Yongyi knew who it was when he heard that voice. He patted Murphy's hand and said comfortingly, "It's Big Brother Lon." Sure enough, the all-powerful Lance Hao Kai went around the screen and appeared in front of Yang Yi and Murphy together with Lon Xian's mother. Murphy had heard Yang Yi mention Lance Hao Kai's name and background before. Moreover, when Lon Xian came to play at their house in the past, she had also seen this little girl and knew that Lance Hao Kai was her father. Calming down a little, she stood up with Yang Yi to welcome them. When he saw Murphy, Lance Hao Kai was stunned for a moment. He turned to look at Yang Yi, his gaze a little strange. Yo, this is sister-in-law, right? Shishi's mother? He wasn't too sure. After all, there were plenty of rich people like that. Yang Yi smiled and introduced them. Yes, this is Murphy. Murphy, these two are Shishi's best friend, Lon Xian's father and mother. Big brother Lance Hao Kai. I've mentioned them to you before. There's also Wu Jingjing. You can call her sister Jing like I do. It really is sister-in-law. Lance Hao Kai's heart calmed down. He laughed and joked. I was wondering why I hadn't seen Shishi's mother before. It turns out that she's too beautiful and was hidden away by brother Yang. Just as Murphy was busy greeting them, Lon Xian's mother, who had been staring blankly at Murphy without makeup, finally reacted. Murphy? Is it really Murphy? Wu Jingjing was a little excited. She confirmed again. Sure enough, she was recognized. Murphy nodded to her embarrassedly. Which one? Do you know her? Lance Hao Kai asked puzzledly. Hubby, it's Murphy. Wu Jingjing patted him on the shoulder and said with some excitement. Did you forget? The song I played to you before for you. I used half a year's savings and crossed the sea to see you. Wasn't it sung by Murphy? Lance Hao Kai really didn't remember. He didn't chase after stars, and he didn't have any artistic cells. He basically forgot the song after listening to it. However, he still had an impression of this song because Wu Jingjing often played it on repeat at home. Finally, after the two families officially got to know each other, everyone sat together for dinner. Lance Hao Kai didn't have much reaction to the fact that Yang Yi's wife was Murphy. Wu Jingjing, on the other hand, became a fangirl. She sat with Murphy, and the two women eagerly talked about some music and entertainment topics. After they got closer, she also asked Murphy for a few signed collector's albums of Same Love as Missouri Road that couldn't be bought on the market. Lance Hao Kai and Yang Yi chatted. He smiled and elbowed Yang Yi's arm. He raised his eyebrows and said, Brother Yang Yi, you really amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Don't be in a hurry to explain. Let me count for you. Lance Hao Kai counted with his fingers. You see, I thought you were just a simple writer, right? But who knew that you also know so much about business? This is the first one. At the time, I thought you were just rich in theoretical knowledge. I didn't expect that, coincidentally, you were also on my consulting company's recommendation list. You even invested in a company with someone else, and your net worth isn't small. This is the second one. Hey, now you've quietly brought out a big star's wife. You've surprised me again. I'm wondering if there's something magical about you that I don't know. Lance Hao Kai touched his chin and looked at Yang Yi as he clicked his tongue. How can it be that magical? No matter how many results you do outside, no matter how much money you earn, don't people still have to go through life and death? The hard part is how to live a normal life, how to enjoy a limited life. So no matter what you see of me, I'm just a normal person in the end. Aren't you, Boss Lan, the same? Yang Yi smiled and said calmly. Hey, you're right. I just like to live like a normal person and live a normal life. Lance Hao Kai was moved by Yang Yi's words. He couldn't help but raise his teacup and signal to Yang Yi. It was almost the start of the gala when Yang Yi and Murphy finally saw their daughter. After makeup, Shishi's face was pale and her lips were red. She looked a little strange. If it weren't for the fact that the other children looked the same, Murphy would have thought that her daughter had offended the makeup artist. Mom, we're the second to perform. The little girl raised 2 fingers and couldn't wait to tell her mom. Very soon, Mom will be able to see Shishi's performance. The little girl didn't care too much about the makeup, but she felt a little uncomfortable with the lipstick. Her lips were dry and she didn't dare to lick them. Murphy took out the makeup box in her bag and applied some lip gloss on her daughter, so that Shishi wouldn't look so hideous. As she applied, she comforted the little girl gently. No matter which performance Shishi is going to perform, Mom will definitely finish watching Shishi's performance. So Shishi, don't be nervous. Do your best, okay? I'm not nervous. I want to perform, Shishi said matter-of-factly. Then do your best, do your best. Mom believes that Shishi will definitely perform well. Murphy kissed the little girl's hand happily. Chapter 323. Shishi was very happy today, because her mother came to watch her performance. This was unprecedented. In the past, her mother couldn't attend many of her own events. Although the little girl was very sensible and could understand her mother's difficulties, she still hoped that her mother could come. After talking to her mother, Shishi happily skipped back to her friends' group. As soon as she returned, she was immediately surrounded. Wow, Shishi, who's that very beautiful auntie? Nan Zhaoyu pointed at Murphy in the distance and asked. I know, she's Shishi's mom. Lan Xian rushed to answer. I've seen Shishi's mom at her house. Hee, she's my mom. Shishi puffed out her chest and nodded proudly. I told you my mom is super beautiful. Chun Shuryan, who had made Shishi cry because of this incident, had completely forgotten about it. She shouted, Shishi, your mother is the most beautiful person I've ever seen. Shishi didn't care about the past. She even shook her little butt in embarrassment and felt happy. The first performance was about to end. The teachers brought the children, who had already put on their costumes, backstage to wait. Teacher Mu looked at the children worriedly. In the end, he encouraged them. Just like what we usually practice. Don't worry about the audience below. Do your part well. Come on, I believe in you. Hee, we're not afraid. The children bumped into each other and laughed happily. Although they said that, when it was time for them to go on stage, there were still some children who had stage fright. Moreover, this kind of emotion would spread. A child looked at the audience of Mom's parents from backstage and couldn't help but cry nervously. The other children's moods were inevitably affected as well. All of their faces were taut, and their smiles from before had already disappeared. Fortunately, the crying child's scenes were closer to the end, so Teacher Shen hugged him and comforted him. Cece also began to feel nervous. Her mind was still clear, but her body was trembling slightly. The little girl was a little worried that she wouldn't act well, and that she would disappoint her mother. Many emotions intertwined. She looked at the bright stage and couldn't move her feet. Fortunately, before their performance began, the stage lights dimmed. Teacher Mu and Teacher Kai quickly led the children who were performing in the first act onto the stage. Shishi, come here quickly. Ms. Mu thought that Shishi was an obedient child who she didn't need to worry about. She only cared about the other children who had stage fright. Shishi was extremely nervous. She didn't know why, but she suddenly felt wronged and wanted to cry. No. Today his mother came to visit him. He had to perform well and not make his mother sad. Another thought occurred to Shishi. It was as if faith had given Shishi strength. She mustered her courage and followed the team onto the stage. The little girl curled up under her eggshell, waiting for Teacher Moo's instructions. The voices on and off the stage were still very noisy. Suddenly, Shishi seemed to hear her father's voice. Shishi, come on. It was true. Daddy was cheering for Cece from below the stage. Shishi looked up. Under the dim stage lights, the little girl's eyes were filled with surprise. She didn't know why, but when she heard her father's voice, Shishi's heart calmed down. Her whole body felt warm. Shishi felt that her strength had returned. The lights were turned on, and Teacher Moo began to read the narration. The countryside is so beautiful. In summer, the sunflowers are golden, and the rice seedlings are green. As the duck eggs hatch one by one, the ducklings broke out of their shells one by one. The child who played the role of the mother duck quacked. The other children who played the role of the ducklings also quacked. The parents in the audience couldn't help but laugh. The laughter made the children nervous. Fortunately, Teacher Moo's narration reminded them. Moreover, there weren't many scenes for the ducklings to recite their lines, so they could still remember their lines. This world is so big. After some tossing and talking, the mother duck hatched the big duck egg. Shishi climbed out of the eggshell in her costume. Shishi had just woken up, so she had to adapt to the stage lights. Soon, she saw the heads of many parents in the audience. A feeling of nervousness spread in the little girl's heart. However, Shishi saw her parents in the audience. Her mother looked very excited. She held her father's hand and pointed at her as if she was saying something. Her mother must be saying, Shishi is out, Shishi is out. Shishi was infected by her mother's joy. The little girl forgot her nervousness. She stuck out her little chest and performed well. All the actions appeared in her mind. Shishi completed her actions meticulously. She acted well as a poor ugly duckling who was bullied in a chicken farm. As the plot progressed, this children's play that no one had seen before became more and more interesting. Every parent began to worry about this ugly duckling. They didn't have time to laugh, applaud, or communicate with the parents next to them. Almost everyone was watching the children's performance with rapt attention. There was no more noise from below the stage, and the pressure on the children on the stage was reduced by a lot. The little guy's performance was getting better and better. Even the little boy who was crying earlier wiped his tears and returned to the stage. Of course, performing well didn't mean that they wouldn't forget their lines. There was a scene where a little boy played the role of a male turkey swaggered toward Shishi aggressively. He tried his best to widen his eyes and acted very well. However, he didn't say anything for a long time. He had forgotten what to say. Fortunately, Shishi remembered. She reminded her in a low voice, Wang Shijuan, say that I'm big and ugly. Shishi, you're big and ugly. Wang Shijuan shouted loudly with her hands on her waist. She didn't know that she had been exposed. Fortunately, the audience didn't know what was going on. They didn't notice, and this small mistake was covered up. Yang Yi, who was in the audience, noticed it. He even reminded Murphy with a smile. The two bad guys in the audience snickered. Gradually, the plot progressed. Shishi, who was playing the role of ugly duckling, was ostracized and left. It began its pitiful wandering life. At this point, 1/3 of the drama was already done. Shishi's part was also half done. The overall performance was not bad. The flaws couldn't obscure the beauty. Nan Zhaoyu and another wild duck also went on stage. They flew over to look at Ugly Duckling. Ugly Duckling was a little scared and retreated step by step. In the past, Nan Zhaoyu was the one who had problems in this scene. Shishi had always acted very well. However, this time, the little girl didn't grasp the situation well. She tripped on the webbing of her costume. With a loud plop, Shishi couldn't maintain her balance and fell backward onto the ground. She was sprawled on the ground and looked very miserable. Shishi didn't feel any pain from this fall because she had a thick costume to cushion her fall. However, the little girl was frightened by this fall. She turned over and sat on the ground in a daze. Her mind was blank, and she didn't know what happened. She felt wronged, and crystal tears started to roll in the little girl's eyes. Chapter 324. The moment Shishi fell, Yang Yi couldn't help but stand up from his seat in the audience. His daughter fell. Where is she hurt? Does it hurt? Is she bleeding? Everything about his daughter affected Yang Yi's heart. He had already lost the ability to think properly. If it weren't for Murphy pulling him back, Yang Yi would have gone up on stage to carry his daughter. Fortunately, Murphy was calmer. Although she was also worried about Shishi. She was someone who often performed on stage, after all, and knew that these small mistakes were normal. On stage, Shishi pursed her lips, but she didn't cry in the end. She just held back the tears in her eyes and tried her best to stand up again. I have to perform well. Mama's watching. Shishi relied on her conviction to suppress the grievances in her heart and wipe away the tears in her eyes. It was a little difficult for her to stand up. After all, the costume made Shishi a little bloated. Nan Zhaoyu and the other boy were also in a daze. They didn't know if they were scared silly by Shishi's fall, but the two boys just watched their little friend struggle to get up on her own. No one knew who started it, but all the parents below the stage started to applaud Shishi's strength. They didn't come to watch those real plays that required excellence. Didn't they just want to see the performance of the children after they worked hard? What was a little setback and a little mistake? Amidst the applause, Shishi still had tears on her face, but her mood had improved a lot. Looking at the little girl's tearful smile from afar, she was also very cute. Yang Yi looked around proudly. He was very proud of his daughter. He didn't expect Shishi to stand up on her own and be so strong. So this is my daughter. The performance was still going on. The most interesting scene was when the ugly duckling turned into a swan. Shishi, as ugly duckling, crawled into the reeds in the swamp, and a child appeared on the stage holding a sun. The sun gradually rose, and this frozen land gradually warmed up under the sun's rays. The larks also began to sing beautiful songs. Ah, the beautiful spring has arrived. Teacher Mu's emotional narration also indicated that Ugly Duckling's ordeal had already passed. At this moment, Ugly Duckling walked out from the reeds. The audience exclaimed in surprise as it was no longer Shishi who was playing the role of the dumb ugly duckling. Instead, it was Yang Luoqi who was playing the role of the elegant swan. Below the stage, Wu Yu was already clapping excitedly. She said to the parents beside her, "This is my daughter, this is my daughter." Shishi's scenes had already ended. Yang Yi and Murphy couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. They had put down the burden in their hearts and could calmly enjoy the performances of other children. However, Lan Kai, who had gone to an unknown place, came back. Behind him was a bodyguard who was carrying a large net. There were many fresh and beautiful roses in the net. Each rose was individually packaged, and the thorns were carefully cut away so that they wouldn't prick the hands. Lan Kai was very low-key. He lowered his head and jumped up and down among the parents. However, he made very little noise, so as not to disturb others. It looked a little magical. A multi-billion-dollar tycoon was personally bowing and giving roses to the parents. Finally, he came to Yang Yi. He sat down and handed a rose to Yang Yi and Murphy with a smile. Later, all of you go and give flowers to our children. After working hard for a month, let them be happy. Lan Kai said. Oh, by the way, you have to have two. Lan Kai gave another rose to Yang Yi and said with some jealousy, "You have to give one to my daughter too. She likes you, Uncle Yang. When she sees you giving her flowers, she will be happier than me giving her flowers." Yang Yi laughed in surprise. When the performance of the story of Ugly Duckling finally ended, it received thunderous applause and cheers from the audience. Not only was the story novel and interesting, but it was also because the children acted really well. One had to know that this was a play. It was much more difficult for 4- or 5-year-old girls to perform a play than other singing programs. Moreover, it was such a big play. All the children participated in it. Just watching it was dazzling, not to mention the difficult choreography and practice behind the scenes. This made the parents of the other classes very impressed, and they wholeheartedly applauded the children of the middle class. Of course, the performance was not perfect. There were some bumps in the middle, and there were some small mistakes, but these were almost negligible. Compared with the performance of the children of the other classes, Shishi and the others had done well enough. Amidst the applause, Yang Yi saw the smile on his daughter's face. This little girl was finally able to enjoy the glory of her hard work. After a while backstage, The parents of the middle class received their children one after another. Yang Yi also saw Shishi, who had just taken off her prop's costume. Although it was winter, the little girl was still a little hot because she was cooped up in the prop's costume. Her forehead was sweaty, and her hair was wet with sweat, sticking to her cheeks. The makeup on her face had already been washed away by the sweat. "Papa!" Seeing her father, Shishi cheered. The little girl, who was relieved of her burden, was so excited that she immediately jumped over without even wearing her down jacket. Yang Yi hurriedly hugged his daughter and asked Mr. Mu for a wet tissue to wipe off the bad makeup on Shishi's face. At the same time, he listened to Shishi's chatter. In fact, this scene could be seen everywhere backstage. The children who were on the stage for the first time were very excited. Even the shy young Luoqi couldn't help hugging her mother's neck and whispering her feelings. "Hey, where's Mom?" Shishi was excited for a while, and then she came back to her senses. She held the flowers that her father had just given her with her two small hands, and asked in confusion, "Your mother is waiting for you outside. Come on, let me put on your clothes for you, and then we'll go see your mother." Yang Yi smiled and took the down jacket for the little girl to put on. From backstage to the corridor outside the auditorium, Murphy was already waiting there. It was not convenient for her to go in just now because there were too many people. But Shishi didn't care. She couldn't wait to be picked up by her mom. "Mom, did you see my performance?" "Yes. Our Shishi is so awesome. You acted so well. Mom really likes you as the ugly duckling. You even portrayed the pitiful part of the ugly duckling," Murphy praised. In fact, Shishi only listened to Murphy's praise. As for how good and what was good, the little girl didn't understand. But this was enough. Shishi smiled sweetly and said to her mom, "Mom, let me tell you. Don't tell anyone else. I almost didn't act well before. When Zhao Yu and the others came over, I even fell down and my butt hurt. Well, it didn't hurt that much. I was so sad that I wanted to cry." The little girl tried her best to describe her emotions at that time. Now, she didn't have the fear and grievance that she had at that time. Instead, she spoke with joy, as if she was describing something amazing. Then how did Shishi get up on her own? Murphy was also very curious about her daughter's psychological activities at that time. She asked. When Mom saw it, she was very nervous. She was afraid that Shishi would be sad. Mom, don't worry. Teacher Mu said that I was super brave and awesome. I wouldn't be afraid or cry. Then I stood up. I wanted Mom to see my performance. Don't cry, don't cry. I stood up. Shishi was at a loss for words and said incoherently. Anyway, Shishi is very strong, right? Murphy scratched the little girl's little nose and said with a smile. Yes, yes. Mom, am I great? Shishi looked at her mother expectantly. Of course, Shishi is the best. Murphy kissed her daughter's face. Shishi smiled happily. Yang Yi watched with a smile. He suddenly felt that it was good to let his daughter face some challenges sometimes. After experiencing this stage, he believed that Shishi would become more confident. Looking at her in high spirits, this was also a kind of growth. Chapter 325. 6 years ago, Jia Siyuan was still a young high school student. Because of Murphy's song Strangers, she began to like Murphy's singing and became a loyal fan of Murphy. 6 years later, Jia Siyuan was already a capable and well-trained white-collar worker. But even if it was New Year's Day, she still had to work overtime. She only skipped work after clocking in. Even if she was wearing black pantyhose and a thin suit in the cold wind, she still hurriedly came to line up. She rushed to the music store near the company and became the first batch of customers to squeeze into the music store the moment it opened. Like other customers in line, they had a clear goal and went straight to the shelf that displayed the newly released albums of this month. There were many new albums released on the first day of New Year's Day. Except for some singers who wanted to avoid the limelight, most of the singers who wanted to release new albums in these 2 months squeezed in this time. After all, this time was the most suitable time to hit the charts and avoid the Spring Festival in February. At that time, most of the music stores would be closed, which would have a great impact on sales. However, Jia Siyuan still found the first dream that she dreamed of from the dazzling collection of albums on the shelf at first glance. She reached out her hand. Coincidentally, a large hand reached over and touched her small, slender hand that was painted with nail polish. The one who bumped into Jia Siyuan was a clean-looking man in a suit with thick eyebrows and big eyes. He smiled politely at Jia Siyuan and raised his hand to signal. "You first." "Thank you." Jia Siyuan smiled at the other party. She took 2 Murphy's albums from the shelf and handed one to the man in the suit who modestly gave way to her. "So polite?" "Thank you." The man in the suit with thick eyebrows and big eyes quickly took it and said gently, "Miss, are you also a fan of Murphy?" Jia Siyuan was just expressing her goodwill and didn't mean to talk more with the other party. She just said a few words and hurried to the counter to pay. After paying for the album, Jia Siyuan was not in a hurry to leave. She sat down in the rest area of the music store. This was a relatively large music store, and they usually held signing events. Jia Siyuan opened the album package, took out the disc, and stuffed it into her Walkman. She put on her headphones and couldn't wait to listen to Murphy's new song that she had been keeping in suspense for 2 months. For the time being, Jia Siyuan skipped First Dream and Coming Across the Ocean to See You, and listened to Love Me Don't Go first. It was not that she did not like those 2 songs, it was just that she had listened to those 2 songs countless times. Now she wanted to enjoy the other new songs first. She did not believe those reports that slandered Mo Fei. She wanted to prove that they were wrong. From the headphones came a vague and lingering saxophone solo at the beginning. Jia Siyuan was suddenly refreshed and had more confidence in Murphy. With such a beautiful melody, how could this song be bad? "I'm still the same at this time. The loneliness at night makes people sad. I don't dare to think too much, because I'm alone." Murphy's voice was lazy, but very attentive. It was not lazy at all, and it gave people a sense of sadness that was difficult to part with. After a few foreshadowing, the song entered the climax early. "Love me don't go. If you say that you don't love me, I don't want to hear you really say it. Give me a little more tenderness." Murphy could integrate the emotions of the lyrics into her voice. Listening to her seemingly casual but deeply sad singing, Jia Siyuan felt that her heart was about to break. "If you don't go, how can we, your fans, leave?" Jia Siyuan clenched her small fist. This song was very magical, not only because of Murphy's stirring, but also because of its melody and the simplicity of the lyrics. Listening to it, Jia Siyuan felt that even if she was listening to the melody, she could sing along. "Love me don't go. If you say that you don't love me." And it was not difficult to sing. Jia Siyuan felt that the next time she went to the KTV, she could try this song. "Love me don't go," in my song, Carefree Sigh. 10 songs, Jia Siyuan listened to them one by one. Anyway, the leaders did not work overtime today, so no one would catch her if she skipped an hour or 2. The more she listened, the more she felt happy. Really, what Murphy said in the Jixin interview was right. The remaining 10 songs were still classics, and they did not deceive the feelings of her fans. Jia Siyuan liked Love Me Don't Go very much. No, she liked In My Song more. She wanted to have a wonderful encounter with the person described in the lyrics of In My Song. "Without any precautions, without any worries, you appeared like this, in my world, bringing me a surprise." Just thinking about it made her happy. Taking off her headphones, Jia Siyuan was ready to go back to work. But when she got up, she saw the man in a suit with thick eyebrows and big eyes who had collided with her before negotiating with the owner of the music store. After a while, he took out money from his pocket, and the owner reluctantly agreed. What kind of deal are they making? Jia Siyuan did not have time to think about it. Her attention was attracted by the conversation of a college couple next to her. "Do you want to buy a copy of Murphy's new album? I really like her singing of Crossing the Sea to See You." The girl said to her boyfriend next to her. "Forget it. Didn't the newspaper say that Murphy's new album only has 2 songs that are good? You already bought those 2 CDs. Why do you still want to buy them?" The boyfriend curled his lips and said, "The album is not expensive. It's only 18 yuan per copy." The girlfriend hesitated. "Then there's no need to buy too much. In your dorm, the clothes, cosmetics, skincare products, and snacks are almost bursting your closet. Buy less if you can. And if we move out in the future, how can you finish buying so many things? The boyfriend tried to dissuade her. Listening to their conversation, thinking of the many classic songs she had just listened to, and thinking of Murphy and Mu Xiang's intentions, Jia Siyuan, who originally did not want to meddle in other people's business, could not help but walk up to the girl and show her the album in her hand, saying, "Believe me, buy it. You will never regret buying it. I just finished listening to this album. I can responsibly tell you that the other 10 songs are also very good, and the quality is not worse than Crossing the Sea to See You!" Jia Siyuan turned her head to look at the stunned boy and snorted disdainfully. Your girlfriend wants to buy something, but you don't give it to her. You want to ask her to come out and live with her, but you're afraid to help her move her things. Boys like you, aren't you a bit too much of a scumbag? Jia Siyuan's contempt made the boy's face turn red. He hummed and hawed, not knowing what to say. On the other hand, the girl pulled her boyfriend behind her and asked somewhat embarrassedly, "Sister, is what you said true? Are the other 10 songs really that good?" At this time, a familiar melody sounded in the shop. The shop owner actually played her favorite song, In My Voice. Just now, the shop owner did not play Murphy's album. He always played his favorite old songs from the 80s. Jia Siyuan looked thoughtfully at the man in the suit who was giving the shop owner a thumbs up. Her face also showed a smile. Listen, this is a very ordinary song among the other 10 songs in Murphy's album. Whether it's good or not, you can judge for yourself. Jia Siyuan raised her eyebrows at the girl and said with a smile. Chapter 326. Jia Siyuan's persuasion was happening all over the country. After Murphy's new album went on sale, many fans who were not affected by the public opinion swarmed into the music stores to buy the album. After listening to it, they were touched by the quality and effort of Murphy's album, and could not help but recommend it to the people around them. It's worth your $18 to buy it. No, I think I'd be willing to buy it even if it costs 80 yuan. A fan said to others without exaggeration. The craze started in the morning and gradually spread. In the afternoon, some music stores could not hold on any longer, and asked for more stock from the distributors. The popularity of Murphy's new album was ignited even before Murphy's appearance on the chart show. Of course, Mo Fei was still participating in the rehearsal at the TV station in Beijing. She would only sing in the live broadcast in the evening. She was so busy that she didn't know that her album had begun to be sold out. But even if she knew, Murphy could face it calmly. Others might need to prove their words based on their results, but Murphy did not need to prove herself. She just needed to sing her own songs, sing for her dreams, and sing for her fans. That was enough. On New Year's Day, the whole country was on holiday, except for the TV station and Du Yuanlei's crew. Yesterday's filming and the first day's filming went smoothly. Their morale was high, and they started the second day's filming without stopping. Yang Yi had already agreed to it. In the afternoon, he brought a large group of people to visit the set. She did not need to go to kindergarten today. She put on her new clothes and shoes and could not wait to go with her father. Yang Huan also wanted to join in the fun. She also invited Ding Xiang, who had prepared cakes and drinks for everyone. The filming location for the micromovie was set at Jiangchuan. There was no need to set up a studio outside because there were many scenes in the script, such as the consultation room in the hospital and the stage where Guang was performing. They could find the corresponding shooting location in the school. Even if they needed to borrow the school's auditorium and piano, Jiang Chuan was more than willing to let the students film their own work. However, they were still filming the early scenes. They would shoot the small and crowded house that Guang rented, and the big house that Su Shirshe rented later. How to solve it? Yang Yi heard that Guizi had rented a house with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room in the school's teacher's dormitory, and it was perfect for the production crew. The room was arranged to be a little more crowded, and with the help of the music teacher next door, they could film Guang's humble abode. The living room was arranged according to the illustration in the script, and after changing the shooting angle, the big house that Su Shirshe rented could also be filmed. Oh right. Du Yuanlei had already thought of a scene where Su Shirshe would be in the pickup truck when they were moving. She would borrow Yang Yi's overlord, and she only needed to disguise Overlord's appearance. Although Yang Yi was willing to provide them with sufficient funds, Du Yuanlei was still very frugal and didn't want to spend money recklessly. When Yang Yi and the others arrived at the house, everyone stopped filming. Wang Chao carefully put down his camera and happily ran over to eat cake and drink coffee. Wow, so many people. There are so many things. As soon as Cece came in, she stuck her head out and looked around. The curious little girl touched everything here and there, feeling that filming a movie was very magical. Shishi, you can't be so rude. Yang Yi rubbed the little girl's head and said with a smile, telling her not to touch other people's precious equipment. It's fine. I'll keep this camera well, and you can touch the rest. It won't be damaged. Wang Chao stuffed his mouth with food and ran back to take the camera to the table. Everyone has worked hard. Let's eat something first. In a while, you guys can pretend that Shishi and I aren't here. You guys can continue filming according to your plan, and we'll just watch quietly from the side. Yang Yi smiled and clapped his hands as he spoke to them. Big brother Yang, as long as you bring so much delicious food every time you come, we'll definitely welcome you every day. Qinwen said with a smile as she drank her coffee. Then you have to please Ding Xiang. She prepared these cakes and coffee for you guys. Yang Yi chuckled and said, I don't have such good benefits when I come here alone. Ding Xiang, who was whispering to Yang Huan and Guizi, heard it. She blushed and quickly waved her hand. No, these are all sponsored by Big Brother Yang. We have to please all of them. A group of people clamored to suck up to them. Yang Yi walked to Guizi and asked him curiously, Why did you rent this house? Don't you usually live in the dormitory? Yang Yi didn't notice that when he asked that question, Yang Huan, who was feeling guilty, had already turned around and walked away as if nothing had happened, leaving the embarrassed Guizi to face Yang Yi. Guizi's face was a little pale. His mind was filled with the scene of Yang Yi kicking the wild boar. Speaking of which, the wild boar was much thinner than him. If he had been kicked like that, even if he didn't die, he would be half dead. Why are you trembling? I'm not your father. Why would I care if you rent a house outside? Yang Yi patted him on the shoulder and said, I'm just asking out of concern. I didn't rent it for anything. I thought that it might be useful for filming a movie. Guizi gave a reason that was full of loopholes. Ah, how did you think of that? Yang Yi asked in surprise. Ahem, I meant that sometimes when I was filming a movie too late, the dormitory was closed and I couldn't go back, so it might be useful. Luckily, Guizi was quick-witted and quickly covered up the lie. Oh. Yang Yi was a little speechless. He smiled and said, You have too much money to burn. Luckily, Du Yuanlei asked them to continue filming, which indirectly saved Guizi, who was sweating in the cold winter. Yang Yi was sitting on the chair in the living room with his daughter in his arms. Ding Xiang and Yang Huan were also sitting on the side, curiously watching the crew shooting in the small room. They were shooting the scene where Su Shishir inspired Ah Guang. Qinwen was lying on the sofa with her legs crossed playfully. Her fingers were pointing in the air, and her expression was very natural. However, Guizi was still a little affected by Yang Yi's interrogation. He was playing the piano, and his fingers were not listening to him. Cut. Xiaogua, be careful. Do you have to be so nervous in front of your girlfriend? Du Yuanlei was a little confused. She stopped Wang Chao and walked up to Guizi to explain the scene. Sister Du is so fierce. Shishi looked at Du Yuanlei's serious face and was a little scared. She curled up in her father's arms and whispered. Wang Chao, who was resting the camera on the table, heard it. He smiled and said to the little girl, Actually, it's not like that. She's usually a very good person. It's just that she's a little emotional when filming. Shishi looked at him and nodded. Okay then. Guizi was quite professional. After a while he found the state of filming and forgot everything outside the scene. He really integrated himself into the role of Ah Guang. Du Yuanlei nitpicked and took 2 pictures before nodding with satisfaction. Very good. Let's start the next scene. Qinwen, you have to get up. It was very interesting to watch others filming. Yang Yi and Shishi gradually became fascinated. Chapter 327. The winter in Beijing was particularly cold, but the recording studio of Beijing television station's New Song Elite Chart program was indeed in full swing. The temperature had dropped below zero at night, but it couldn't stop the enthusiasm of the singers and fans. At this moment, the person dancing and singing on stage was an idol female star named Chao Tsong-tsong. Her singing didn't need to be evaluated. Her hot pants and leather jacket made people feel as if they were back in the summer. Not everyone had Murphy's talent, and not everyone had a Muziang like Murphy. In this extremely competitive entertainment industry, some self-sacrifice was inevitable. There was no need to be harsh. Everyone had their own choices. In order to win the attention and support of the otakus, Chao Tsong-tsong also froze until her lips turned blue. Backstage, Murphy was ready to go on stage. She hadn't reached the stage where she had to expose her body to attract popularity. So Murphy's clothes were still considered warm. She wore a gray shirt with a patchwork knitted jacket and black skinny jeans with brown boots. Although it wasn't a particularly fashionable outfit, this combination, with Murphy's tall figure, still showed off a strong style of street photography. It was very photogenic. Of course, these clothes, which were also suitable for a slightly plump girl, also covered Murphy's slim and good figure. But Murphy never wanted to rely on these, so she didn't care at all. In order to keep warm, she even used a large knitted scarf to cover her thighs and knees. When she was ready to go on stage, she folded it and handed it to Mo Xiaowan for safekeeping. "Sister, do your best. I believe you can definitely win this week." Mo Xiaowan shook her fist at her and encouraged her. Murphy smiled slightly and didn't answer, but her expression was calm and confident. When she finally went on stage, Murphy held the microphone and stood naturally in the middle of the stage. As usual, there were no dancers, but there was a person sitting in front of a piano not far away, pretending to play, giving off the feeling of a piano accompaniment. Murphy noticed that there were a lot of support signs for her below the stage. The LED signs flashed with her name and the song she was going to hit tonight. Compared to a few months ago, this treatment was already generous enough, right? Murphy also knew that these fans came spontaneously. Tianmei didn't organize them. "Murphy, I love you." Before the prelude started, there was a sharp female voice from below the stage, which reached Murphy's ears. Murphy looked towards the source of the voice. It was a girl who was jumping up and down excitedly, waving a light stick in her hand at her. "Thank you." Murphy was touched and couldn't help but bow deeply. As she bowed, the gentle sound of the piano began to play, moving people's hearts. "What song is this? The melody is pretty good." Some of the audience members who weren't familiar with Murphy couldn't help but ask their companions. "Didn't the host say it just now? It's Murphy's new song in her new album, In My Voice." His companion was speechless. Murphy straightened up, gently brushed her hair behind her ear, raised the microphone, and with a deep breath she began to sing, without a bit of defense, without a trace of concern. "You just appeared in my world like this." The first few verses weren't exciting, but it wasn't easy to sing well. If the pitch was too high or too low, it wouldn't sound good. However, Murphy sang very naturally, giving people a feeling of being a part of nature. "There's no news from my world. All that's left are memories." It was as if the sadness came to an abrupt end with Murphy's singing. However, it only paused for a moment, and the emotions burst out in the next second. "You exist." Murphy's natural high voice suddenly made the fans who really loved music couldn't help but have goosebumps. Their hearts seemed to tremble from this line of lyrics. "It's really good. It's even better than the I came across the sea to see you," she sang before. Of course, there was no distinction between high and low music, but it had to be said that the appeal of the high voice was indeed better. Therefore, the live audience couldn't help but like it in their hearts, pushing the position of In My Voice even higher. "You exist, deep in my mind, in my dreams, in my heart, in my voice." It was a very simple lyric, but it sang into people's hearts. But was this song really that simple? No, if one carefully tasted the next lyrics and listened to the next melody, they would be moved like a tide. I still remember when we walked side by side through that bustling alley. Even if you and I were strangers, passers-by, we could still feel each other's eyes, a heartbeat, an unexpected happiness, as if it was a dream, destined by fate. This wasn't a poem, but more like a prose poem, singing the beauty of a chance encounter with Murphy's moving voice. It was plain without any ups and downs. However, amidst this calmness, Murphy threw out a small explosion. "You exist." Regardless of whether they knew Murphy or not, the audience in the audience were mesmerized by it. Those who liked it were so excited that their scalps tingled, feeling as if they had been sublimated. "It's too good. Where can I buy Murphy's song?" The audience member from before couldn't help but ask his companion. "Shut up." His companion really wanted to beat him to death. Finally, the song gradually came to an end with Murphy's looping high voice, but the audience in the audience still felt that it wasn't enough. They couldn't wait to shout, "Encore!" The shouts of "Encore!" were even louder than the thunderous applause. Unfortunately, Beijing television station was better. They had always performed according to their own schedule. Therefore, even though the audience was filled with the sound of the encore, the host still came up to help Murphy out. They let Murphy go backstage to rest first, and then announced the next singer's song. Suddenly, there was a burst of boos from the audience. The faces of the singers backstage who were ready to go on stage were very interesting. Although Murphy wasn't scheduled to sing the encore song, many fans voted for Murphy. Many fans who happened to be watching the show in front of the TV were also willing to vote for Murphy's good song. That night, Murphy won the weekly champion of the New Song Elite chart with the song, "In Your Voice." Moreover, it was an overwhelming advantage. There was no dispute that she won the weekly champion. Although Mo Fei, who was on the TV, was still holding the trophy calmly and smiling as usual, her fans were all happy for her. With this weekly champion, there should be no doubt about the quality of the remaining songs in Murphy's new album, right? It turned out that those untenable rumors were going to be dispelled, right? The fans couldn't wait to see what kind of results Murphy's new album, which could be said to be the best of the best, would get. However, at this time, Murphy, who returned to the audience, was told a piece of good news by Mo Shawan. Chapter 328. After receiving the award, Mo Fei returned to the backstage. Mo Shawan, who had been waiting for her, rushed over excitedly and said to her, "Elder sister, good news. Chen Yijie invited you to be the warm-up guest for his solo concert in Yangqing City." Chen Yijie's invitation? Mo Fei couldn't help but be dazed for a moment. Why would Chen Yijie suddenly invite her to be a warm-up guest? Chen Yijie had always been a superstar, and Murphy was only close to him 6 years ago when she reached the top. Even then, Murphy's divinity wasn't stable, and the gap between her and Chen Yijie was still obvious. But the two of them didn't have any interactions, and Murphy was even Chen Yijie's fan. No, it wasn't like they didn't have any interactions. Yang Yi's side account, Mu Ziong, was the point where the two of them interacted. About 2 months ago, after Murphy sang "Crossing the Ocean to See You," Chen Yijie praised Murphy in an interview. But no matter what, there was still a big gap between Murphy and Chen Yijie. Chen Yijie inviting her to be his warm-up guest was also praising her and increasing her fame, which was why Mo Shawan was so excited. Really? Murphy was in disbelief. Really, Chen Yijie asked for your phone number from the company and personally called you not too long ago. I already confirmed it with the company. Mo Shawan hurriedly explained. She even smiled and said, "The company also checked the schedule with Chen Yijie. The timing is also very coincidental. On the 10th of January, you just happened to have an event in Yangcheng. Chen Yijie also said that you don't have to come to the rehearsal a day in advance. You can just go there in the afternoon." Murphy lightly nodded. She didn't know if it was because of her guesses, but she still wanted to personally call Chen Yijie to thank him for his support. But there were too many people at the TV station, and it wasn't convenient for them to talk. Murphy and Mo Shawan returned to the hotel first. Murphy didn't bother to change her clothes as she asked Mo Shawan for her phone and called Chen Yijie. Murphy was not a newbie in the entertainment industry. No matter how cold she was not ignorant of the ways of the world, so she naturally expressed her gratitude to Chen Yijie. "Haha Murphy, you don't have to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank teacher Mu Ziong. He didn't tell you in advance, did he?" Chen Yijie happily replied in Cantonese, because that was how Murphy communicated with him. Sure enough, Yang Yi was behind this. Murphy blamed Yang Yi in her heart, but she wasn't angry. Instead, her heart was filled with gratitude towards Yang Yi. He had always been supporting her from behind, and now he had secretly arranged such a big gift for him. It was no wonder that on Christmas Eve, when she was in a daze, he secretly told her not to worry about the media slandering her. Now that she thought about it, it turned out that he had already asked Chen Yijie to support her. However, from Chen Yijia's description, it seemed that Yang Yi hadn't told him about the relationship between Mu Ziong and Murphy. Murphy pretended that nothing had happened and ended the call with Chen Yijie. Then she couldn't wait to call Yang Yi back. However, those were just some words of love between a man and a woman, so it wasn't worth telling outsiders. Mu Yuqing, a huge otaku who had become a supervisor, was also forced to go on a blind date on New Year's Day. He didn't know what the result would be. At night, he dragged his tired body home. Without taking a shower, he hurriedly opened the website. Has it been updated? Mu Yuqing was actually a little nervous, like a newlywed wife. After all, he had waited for a month. Mu Yuqing saw that there was a new volume in the directory of Prison Break, and the 2 new chapters that he hadn't bought yet. He then waved his fist in ecstasy. 2 chapters were too little, so Mu Yuqing couldn't bear to read them. However, even if he couldn't bear to read them, Mu Yuqing couldn't bear to not read them. He quickly clicked on the purchase button, opened the first chapter, and started reading. It continued the ending of the previous volume. But this volume had a man who looked like an eagle, the special agent of the American FBI, Alexander Mahone. In the first chapter, Yang Yi's portrayal of Mahone was so sharp that even Mu Yuqing, who put himself in Michael's shoes, shuddered. However, in these 2 chapters, Mu Yuqing saw that Michael, who he had been worried about for a month, finally escaped from the prison warden barracks' pursuit with the help of the train. Thank God, the prison break was a success. Mu Yuqing was a little excited because the book review section had been discussing whether the plot of the second volume would take place in or outside the prison. Many fans thought that it would take place in prison. After all, the title of the book was Prison Break. What kind of prison break was it if it didn't take place in prison? They were certain that in the new volume, Michael and the others would definitely be caught and brought back to prison. Then they would start a new prison break plan. However, that would be too torturous. Mu Yuqing still liked to see Michael and the others break out of prison. However, their escape was not over yet. Special Agent Mahone was still closely following Michael's footsteps. He found a tattoo artist and began to understand the plan to hide Michael's tattoo. This plot made Mu Yuqing very worried. After all, the tattoo was Michael's biggest secret. It also hid Michael's arrangements outside the prison. The plot of the other characters was also mentioned in these 2 chapters. The abandoned teabag was not dead. He found a bucket of ice at a campsite to preserve his severed hand, and then forced a doctor in a private clinic to perform a replantation operation on his severed hand. In the illustration, Teabag's pale face and sinister eyes made people shudder. Mu Yuqing had a hunch that this character would make a comeback and bring endless trouble to Michael and the others. Veronica and Terrence were trapped in a remote house together. Although Veronica called the police, Mu Yuqing had a vague feeling that this woman was in trouble. The unconscious Sarah finally woke up while recalling the plot of her time with Michael. She also found a folded paper crane in the bag that Katie, the nurse, had brought her. It was a note that Michael had left for her. It seemed that Sarah was still the female lead of the second volume. However, the plot came to an abrupt end. Mu Yuqing, who was used to Yang Yi ending chapters, did not want to complain anymore. He quietly returned to the book review section. Of course, he first tipped a leader to congratulate Yang Yi on his return. Only then did Mu Yuqing write his own post in the book review section. The second volume will be a chase between an eagle and a fox. Special Agent Mahone and the well-planned Michael would have a contest of IQ. The 2 of them, one in front and one behind, would compete to see who could catch up faster or escape faster. The book review section had been very lively today. However, the top post was made by an unknown ID. If Prison Break was made into a TV series, would you like it? Many netizens left comments below to express their support. However, many people felt that if they really wanted to make a TV series, they could not just blindly shoot it, And they could not just find a few cats and dogs to shoot it. At the very least, they should invite excellent Western actors to act in it. If they change it to Chinese actors and names, they will ruin the classic. Mu Yuqing flipped through the post out of boredom. His eyes could not help but light up. He felt that things were not that simple. Maybe someone was really tempted. Chapter 329. Zhu Jie was in high spirits recently. As he walked on the road, he felt like he was floating. With the song Mistress, he had become famous all over the country. He was already a superstar. Just by looking at the number of invitations to variety shows, he was even more popular than the company's #1 star, Murphy. In the past, when he participated in those variety shows according to the company's arrangements, Zhu Jie was actually a little unwilling, because he was always a supporting character. But now Zhu Jie especially liked variety shows. Although he would often be teased by others, he didn't care, because he was now the main character. Moreover, if he didn't return to his hometown, it would be like walking in the night. Now that he was popular, how could he not show off on variety shows? Of course, Zhu Jie was the happiest because his family's view of him had changed. Although his family didn't have any prejudice against actors and singers, they had prejudice against him. They often sneered at Zhu Jie's declaration of his ambition to be a big star. They felt that he didn't have any talent, and that he would return after a few years in the entertainment industry. Now that Zhu Jie was really popular, his father who was a big boss, his brother who was in business, and so many relatives who used to look down on him started to look at Zhu Jie in a new light. They also started to give him more financial support. The proud Zhu Jie was more or less satisfied, but his manager was still not satisfied. Du Luan felt that the results of Mistress were not enough. It still lacked the title of new bestsellers. If it didn't get the title, then the popularity of Mistress would be like a silver medal. It lacked the most precious golden light. If it didn't get the title, Du Luan felt that the operating ability he wanted to show lacked persuasiveness. If he wanted to change jobs in the future, he would lose the most persuasiveness of a gold medal manager. But the momentum of Mistress, which had been released for more than half a month, had slowed down. Now Mistress, which only reached the 3rd position, was threatened by the new songs released this month. The new songs released on New Year's Day had a lot of strong songs, such as Murphy's In My Voice, and a few new singles by veteran singers. They all squeezed into the top 10 on the 2nd day. With this momentum, Mistress would surpass it sooner or later. It was almost impossible to reach the top again, unless they used some underhanded means. Du Luan found Zhu Jie and discussed with him. He wants to have a scandal with Sister Murphy? Hadn't they already clarified this matter before? The media and fans aren't fools, right? Zhu Jie asked, puzzled. Scandals, aren't they all fake and unpredictable? Du Luan said to him with a smile. Clarifying is one thing, but whether or not there's someone behind it is another. But I really have nothing to do with Sister Murphy. Last time you made me make a scene, Sister Murphy doesn't even want to talk to me anymore. Zhu Jie complained. Du Luan was speechless. He really wanted to beat this idiot to death, but he endured it and patiently explained to him. What I mean is, the audience doesn't know. If the scandal breaks out again, as long as it's handled well, many of them will think that the previous clarification was just to cover up the truth. Do you know what 3 men make a tiger means? As long as the rumor is spread by many people, people will believe it. Once the scandal spreads, many people will really think that you have something to do with Murphy, Du Luan said. Zhu Jie frowned and said, Then why should I have anything to do with Murphy? Isn't this lying to others and myself? If I have a scandal with Murphy, can I really be with her? Also, Murphy is so much older than me. I don't want such a heavy taste. I prefer the new trainees in the company, the female students, hee. Du Luan took a deep breath to calm himself down. Then he said resentfully, It's just hype. My young master, it's not like I want you and Murphy to have anything to do with each other. Did you forget the hype I told you earlier? Don't you want your song to be #1? That's right. How do I get it? Zhu Jie was still a little moved by this result. If he got #1, he would really become a god. Although it was just a small god, it was still insignificant to many big stars, But Jujia still hasn't unlocked this achievement. If you and Murphy have a scandal, the song Mistress will be mentioned by people. Then, people will dig out your previous words and start to question whether you are lying, whether the song is hinting at Murphy. It doesn't matter if people believe it or not. As long as you use this matter to hype up the song and make Mistress popular again, and even make Murphy's fans pay for your song might be able to hit #1. Duluan analyzed for him. Of course, if you want to achieve the right amount of hype, this scandal has to be spread as real as possible. You also need Murphy to cooperate and take a few ambiguous photos with you, just like last time. Duluan felt that this matter was a little tricky. You are right, but Sister Murphy wouldn't be willing, right? And after what happened last time, she will definitely be on guard. If I take that kind of photo with her again, Sister Murphy will definitely find out. Jujia wasn't stupid. Well, this requires her to be willing. Duluan said with a wry smile. So I need you and Sister Ling to ask for help and have Sister Ling put pressure on Murphy. Jujia frowned. Right now, my aunt holds Murphy in the palm of her hand and the whole company is promoting her. Will my aunt still help me persuade Murphy? Of course, didn't your dad invest in the company? You are a shareholder of the company. So Sister Ling will definitely value your request. Also, you are Sister Ling's nephew. As long as you pester her, Sister Ling will definitely help you. Duluan pretended to be certain and said, Don't always praise others and belittle yourself. Don't forget, although Murphy is the company's #1 sister, you are also the #1 brother. You are right. Right now, there are no other men in the company who are more popular than me, Jujia said proudly. Besides, creating hype is a win-win situation. Your song can become a hit again, and Mo Fei can also benefit from the hype. Her album also wants to hit the platinum album. Increasing her popularity is more beneficial for her. Who knows, she might also want to hype it up. In order to persuade Jujia, Duluan made a judgment that he didn't quite believe. You're right. If Sister Murphy and I hype it up, both of us will become popular. From the results, it is a win-win situation. Jujia was persuaded by Duluan. That's right. Also, isn't Sister Ling's best at hype? She will definitely be moved by your proposal. Duluan was happy and quickly struck while the iron was hot. Your new song only has 10 days left. You have to hurry. Otherwise, if you miss the new song, what's the point of hyping it up? Well, hype it up and take the crown. Jujia was in high spirits. I will go and talk to my aunt. But can they really do what they want? Chapter 330. Jujia really went to Niu Meiling. Niu Meiling didn't agree at first, but after listening to Jujia's words, she frowned and said, Who gave you this idea? Murphy is different from before. The company now wants her to establish a positive image. If you make such a fuss, won't Murphy's public image be ruined? I thought about it myself. Auntie, can't you think about your nephew? Jujia was very loyal and took this matter on himself. He pretended to be wronged and said, I'm your cousin's son. If you don't help me, are you going to help an outsider? Niu Meiling really had a headache about Jujia trying to get close to her. In the past, she had thrown him aside and let him play by himself. But now, Jujia's father had injected a large sum of money into the company and helped her get through a difficult time. Niu Meiling couldn't ignore Jujia's request even if she didn't look at the monk's face. Jia, think about it. If you want me to talk to Murphy and let her agree to cooperate with you to spread a rumor, will she agree? Niu Meiling softened her voice and persuaded. You know Murphy's temper. She didn't want to before, but it doesn't mean she won't now. Jujia quickly replied. Duluan had already arranged an excuse for him. In the past, Sister Murphy paid attention to her image. She would rather have bad results than have a rumor, but now it's different. Doesn't she want results? Doesn't she want to sell this album to the platinum standard? Doesn't she want to be a song queen like 6 years ago? Now that she cooperates with me to create such a rumor, won't it be a good thing for her to increase her fame and sales? Jujia waved his hand and said, Besides, I'm not going to make it real. We'll just let this rumor last for a week or two. Once we've achieved our goal, we'll immediately clarify that it's not the case. Just like last time, Didn't elder sister Mo Fei also agree later? Auntie, if there's a first time, there will be a second time. Cough, if you don't believe me, ask her, she might agree. Niu Miling remained silent, frowning as she weighed the pros and cons of this matter. Auntie, isn't it just hype? Isn't this a trick that you're tired of playing? I remember that Zhen Zhen was made famous by you in this way. So many people in the company are looking forward to being treated like Zhen Zhen. Why should she be the only one acting cold and aloof? The company has put in so much effort to nurture her. Is it so difficult for her to contribute some trivial news to the company? Zhu Jie struck while the iron was hot and said all the provocative words that Du Luan had taught him. I've heard that the artists under the big record companies are all obedient. Why is it that our company is raising a big boss? If she's not obedient, why would the company give her so many resources? It had to be said that Du Luan really grasped Niu Miling's itch. Niu Miling was a person with a strong desire for control. Indeed, she had always been resentful of Murphy for not being disciplined, but she hid it very well. Hype has to be grasped at the right time, and it has to be just right. You want to use Murphy's reputation to hype up, but have you ever thought that Murphy's original image is very good? If you hype up like this, it will have the opposite effect and make many fans who like Murphy dislike you? Niu Miling took a deep breath and changed her angle to say to Zhu Jie, if you and Zhen Zhen are in a scandal, there are many ways to operate it. I don't want Zhen Zhen. Zhen Zhen's popularity is too low. How can she be compared to Sister Murphy? Zhu Jie refuted. Moreover, Zhen Zhen hasn't released an album yet. There's no benefit for me to hype up with her. Instead, I'll let her take advantage of my popularity. I won't do this kind of losing thing. In order to avoid Murphy's limelight, Zhen Zhen's album was delayed until after March. It's not a big deal to ask. Auntie, if she doesn't agree, we'll think of other ways. Zhu Jie took Niu Miling's hand again and said coquettishly, don't you want your nephew to be number one, and then you'll be in the limelight? Niu Miling was also moved by his words. Her nephew could make a name for himself in the entertainment industry. Regardless of whether it was a good reputation or a strange reputation, regardless of whether it was due to his talent or the strange catchphrase song, Niu Miling would still feel proud of him. Niu Miling sighed and pressed Zhu Jie down. She said, okay, I'll try to ask for you, but let me tell you, you have to be mentally prepared. I don't think it'll be easy. With Murphy's personality, don't. How can I just try to ask? Auntie, you have to help me. Help me persuade Murphy and tell her the pros and cons. Anyway, it'll be good for her. Zhu Jie said with a smile. Being pestered by him, Niu Miling rubbed her eyebrows and said, okay, I'll promise you. After the 3-day New Year's Day holiday, Shishi was sent back to kindergarten by her father. She could finally see her friends again. After 3 days, the little girl had too many interesting things to share with her friends. However, Lan Xian, the only one who didn't play in Jiang City, stole the limelight first. I went to see the snow with my father in a place far, far away. We had to take a plane to play. Then my mother and I made a snowman. My mother used a carrot as its nose. Snowman? It's snowing. Will little Xian be very cold? Yang Luoqi blinked as she tugged on Lan Xian's arm with a nervous expression. Cold, it's super cold. It's 100 times colder than at home. Lan Xian thought for a while and said, but I'm wearing a lot of clothes, so I'm not afraid of the cold. Nan Zhaoyu tried hard to interrupt. He finally thought of a poem and read it out. Timely snow promises a bountiful year. However, he forgot the next sentence. He only vaguely remembered that his father had read it to him before. Naturally, the children were not interested in his poem. Fortunately, Shishi took over the topic and didn't make him the king of silence. Shishi said happily, snowman. I've seen it before. My father drew it for me. Sister Elsa's good friend Snowbow is a snowman. It can talk and walk. It's very awesome. Xianair, can your snowman talk? Lan Xian shook her head sadly and said unhappily, no, it can't talk or walk. It doesn't matter. If I see Sister Elsa in the future, I'll ask her to make your snowman talk. Shishi hugged her little friend and comforted her. Lan Xian immediately cheered up. Really? Thank you, Shishi. Hee hee. She laughed happily. Air, will you let your snowman play with me in the future? But I'm afraid of the cold. Oh, what should I do? Young Luochi was confused by herself. After talking about the story of snow for a while, it was finally Shishi's turn to talk about her vacation experience. I went with my father to see Uncle Gua shoot a movie. Cece tried her best to describe the scene of the movie. There was a very, very big camera, and it was heavier than me. Then many people were shooting the movie together, but there was a big sister who was super fierce. If you didn't act well, you would be shouted cut and then scolded. So terrible? Then I don't want to shoot a movie. Young Luochi whispered in fear. No. In fact, it's very fun. It's just like when we played the role of the ugly duckling. Mr. Mu taught us and then filmed it. Shishi was in high spirits. It's not fun to play the role of the ugly duckling, and there's no food. Shishi, is there any food in the movie? Lon Xian asked curiously. Shishi tilted her head and thought for a while. But in her mind she remembered that every time she went with her father he would bring a lot of food, and a group of uncles and aunties would eat it. So the little girl nodded and said affirmatively, "Yes, there is a lot of food in the movie. We can't even finish it." Really? Lon Xian's face lit up. Then I want to shoot a movie too. Me too. Chen Shuryan didn't have much to say, but when it came to food, she became excited and said hurriedly, "I can eat a lot, and I can definitely help them finish it." Chapter 331. While Shishi was fooling her friends in the kindergarten, Yang Yi was also fooling Du Yuanlei in the film set. After Murphy entered the promotional period for her new song, she was so busy that she could not even land. She flew all over the country to various stages and signings. She did not have time to come back to Jiangqing for 5 consecutive days, let alone go home. So Yang Yi did not have much to do at home. So he went to the film set to watch Gua Ziyi and the rest of the crew. Of course, Yang Yi did what he said. He just watched and did not criticize Du Yuanlei in the film set. He just watched without saying a word. No matter what problems there were in the film set, he would let Du Yuanlei deal with it herself. He would be the invisible person. However, Yang Yi, who was the screenwriter and investor, could not be the invisible person in the beginning. In the beginning, everyone even felt a little distant from him. They could not help but glance at him when they were patting him. But later on everyone gradually got used to his existence, and instead, they only treated him as a feeder. "Big brother Yang, you always bring us delicious food every time. What if my weight loss plan is ruined?" Qinwen joked with him generously. "Then you don't have to eat it. Leave it all for me." Wang Chao said. "No, I don't want to give it to you. I want to eat it." Qinwen said quickly. Yang Yi looked at them bickering and could not help but laugh. "Even if you give it all to me, I can finish it all. My sister Ding Xiang makes cakes, egg tarts, and puddings. I will never get tired of them." Gua Ziyi said. Okay. It's your sister Ding Xiang again. My sister Ding Xiang did not say that she was yours. Qinwen pushed him away and protected her cake. "I am right. Sister Ding Xiang is my best friend. You definitely did not know my sister Ding Xiang earlier than I did." Gua Ziyi argued. Fortunately, Ding Xiang and Yang Huan did not come today. Otherwise, Ding Xiang would definitely be embarrassed by Qinwen's teasing. While everyone was chatting and taking a break, Du Yuanlei hesitated for a moment before walking up to Yang Yi. She asked nervously, "Teacher Yang, what do you think of my filming these past few days?" She even wanted him to comment on her. Yang Yi was a little surprised, but he still smiled and said, "It's pretty good. I've never seen anyone act before, but from what I've seen in the past few days, it should be pretty good." It wasn't a very high evaluation, but Du Yuanlei was happy. She also wanted to hear Yang Yi's approval. Then she said, "It's like this, Mr. Yang. I was thinking after we finish shooting this micro-movie, if you are satisfied, can we continue working together?" Seeing that Yang Yi was a little confused, she quickly explained, "I'm referring to your other work, Yuzue. Didn't you already sell the film and television rights of Soldier Assault and Drawing Sword?" "I actually prefer Prison Break, but I can't handle such a big drama yet. So if you think my directing skills are good, I'd like to help you shoot Yuzue. Du Yuanlei was afraid that Yang Yi would think that she was too greedy, so she added. Of course, this is all up to you. If you think I'm good enough and are willing to let me give it a try, then I can help you film a season of Yuzue for free to prove myself. Wait a minute, you've read all my books? Yang Yi interrupted Du Yuanlei. He was a little surprised. Du Yuanlei was also a busy person, but from her tone, it seemed like she had read all his books. Yes, I've read all your works. Du Yuanlei nodded. If you want me to sort out the plot of Yuzue, just point to a paragraph and I can tell you right away. Looking at Du Yuanlei's confident look, Yang Yi could confirm that she had done her homework. Yang Yi hesitated in the face of her self-recommendation. He said thoughtfully, Yuzue is different from our current TV series. I don't want to shoot it too early. Du Yuanlei thought that Yang Yi was rejecting her. She was a little disappointed, but she still smiled reluctantly and said, It's okay, I'll follow your wishes. Don't worry about me, I'll continue to work hard. Yang Yi couldn't help laughing. He waved his hand and said, I'm not questioning your ability as a director. You did a good job. It's just that the remaining sin is really different from others. Du Yuanlei, who came from a professional class, did not lack theoretical knowledge. Moreover, she had shot a student film before and directed a documentary about the stars. Her actual directing skills had been honed long ago. Now she was shooting a short film with only a few people acting, and her performance could be said to be at ease. Although Yang Yi could not tell the level of Du Yuanlei's acting skills, he was satisfied with her performance. So Yang Yi thought for a moment and said to Du Yuanlei, How about this? After we finish filming this and come back for the spring festival, if you don't have any other plans next semester, I'll give you a script. Let's try filming a low-budget comedy film. Shooting a movie? Du Yuanlei had already given up on Yang Yi, but she did not expect that Yang Yi would give her another surprise. Shooting a movie was more challenging than shooting a TV series. Is it really a movie? Du Yuanlei asked nervously. Yes, it's a real movie, a complete movie. Of course, I'm still thinking about the story. You can focus on shooting this short film first. Once it's produced, it'll catch up with my micro-broadcasting's publicity plan. Then, we'll talk about the future. Yang Yi smiled as he painted a pie for Du Yuanlei. However, Du Yuanlei firmly accepted this pie. She nodded gratefully at Yang Yi and said with joy, Thank you, Teacher Yang. I'll definitely work hard. This was the first time he had seen her so agitated. Usually this girl suppressed her emotions too tightly. No need to thank me. Believe in yourself. As long as you produce results, you'll have everything in the future. Yang Yi encouraged her and gave her a bowl of chicken soup at the same time. Seeing that the atmosphere here was a little serious, Guozi ran over and said, Big brother Yang, let me ask you something. Other people's movies have a rap party. Our micro movie is also called a movie. Will there be a rap party after we finish filming? Yang Yi was stunned. He carefully pondered over this term and then smiled. Yes, and we'll have a good meal. As long as you tell me the place, I'll invite you. Hooray. Hooray, brother Yang. Behind Guozi, a group of people who were eavesdropping all cheered excitedly. Look. Why aren't you thanking me? I'm fighting for benefits for you. At the very least, you should have said long live big brother Guo to me. Guozi grinned and raised his eyebrows at them. F***ck off. Qinwen snorted in disdain. You're just little Guo. Stop pretending to be a big brother. Yang Yi was in a good mood. He generously waved his hand and said, It's not just a meal. After the meal, go to karaoke or somewhere else to play. I'll cover it all for you. Really? Guozi was excited. Then brother Yang, I want to go to the bar to play. Bring me to the bar to play. Little brats who weren't even 18 years old really liked places like bars that they couldn't go to normally. Then you have to focus on shooting. Director Du, help me supervise him. If there are too many NGs, he won't have a share in the rap party and eating, drinking and playing later. Yang Yi deliberately said with a straight face. Du Yuanlei smiled. It was rare for her to not be tense. She also joked, Okay, Teacher Yang, just watch. I'll supervise too. Qinwen volunteered and raised her hand. No way. I'm fighting for benefits for you and you're treating me like this. the little fatty wailed. Chapter 332. Murphy's album sales momentum was good. Although the sales volume on the first day was only 160,000, it was different from Murphy's previous comeback albums. After the first day, the daily sales volume did not drop off a cliff, but continued to rise every day. Perhaps it was because of the increase in word of mouth. The previous criticism of Murphy's album gradually became untenable. Moreover, many real music critics were willing to support Murphy's album in their own columns, so the daily sales increase was gratifying. By the fifth day, the daily sales volume of First Dream had reached 380,000. This data was already very good. This daily sales volume could almost push Murphy back into the ranks of the A-list singers. Of course, the A-list singers were not divided like this. In addition to album sales, it was also related to some issues of influence. What was more surprising was that the ferocious daily sales of Murphy's album was still rising. If this trend continued, Murphy's album may have the possibility of hitting the platinum album sales at the end of the month. Of course, no one could say for sure. After all, the normal album sales curve was in the shape of a parabola. Even if it was a platinum album, it could not increase endlessly. When the rise reached a certain peak, it would gradually decline. The problem was that no one could predict how great the potential of Murphy's album was, and when this peak would come. But now there was not much negative news about Murphy's album. After confirming the quality of Murphy's album, the media that had originally followed and slandered Murphy seemed to have forgotten about it. They changed sides and began to cheer for Murphy. If it were another bad-tempered singer, they might have brought up old scores and quarreled with them. But Murphy did not take it seriously. The world slandered her or praised her, but Murphy was unmoved and treated it as nothing. On January 7th, the busy promotional period was not over yet, but she needed to attend a signing event in Jiang City on this day. Other than that, there was no other arrangement, so it could be regarded as half a holiday. Murphy returned to Jiang City. After attending the signing event in the morning, before she had time to go home to see her daughter, she was called back to the company by Niu Meiling, who said that she had something to discuss. Mo Xiaowan was worried that Niu Meiling wanted to discuss the contract extension with Murphy again, so she followed her. In the end, Niu Meiling didn't talk about renewing the contract. After a while, she actually talked about letting Murphy and Zhu Jie cooperate in a play. In fact, Niu Meiling did not want to talk about this with Murphy, because Murphy had already risen in power. She was no longer the Murphy who had suffered a setback a few months ago, and could be easily manipulated by her. However, she was also annoyed by Zhu Jie's pestering. Moreover, Zhu Jie's father, who was also her eldest cousin, had also called and asked her to take care of Zhu Jie. If it were someone else, Niu Meiling would have cursed out loud. What kind of business people were they? They didn't know the rules of the entertainment industry at all, and just kept shouting that they wanted to take care of someone. Was this circle something that could be accomplished through connections? But after all, they were relatives, and this big cousin was not an ordinary rich man. He also held shares of Tianmei. Niu Meiling could not ignore his request. In desperation, Niu Meiling could only seize the opportunity when Murphy came back to talk to her face to face. Even so, when Niu Meiling made the request, she was very careful with her words and tried to be tactful. However, Niu Meiling did not know that the moral integrity that she did not care about was as precious as life to Murphy. After figuring out that Niu Meiling wanted her to have a scandal with Zhu Jie again, Murphy's face was suddenly covered with a layer of frost. Her whole person was like the 10,000-year-old ice of the North Pole, 1,000 miles away. Before Murphy could get angry, Mo Xiaowan stood up first and shouted, "Absolutely not. Sister Ling, didn't we agree? Our sister Fei will not participate in any of the company's hype. Why are you bringing up the old matter again?" Perhaps it was because she had recently started to work on Murphy and Yang Yi's studio. Mo Xiaowan had raised her position a lot. She did not notice that at this moment, she was a little offended. Niu Meiling frowned, but she did not flare up. Instead, she endured it and gently persuaded. "Isn't this also considering the career development of Murphy and Ah Jie? Zhu Jie is also a very popular singer now. If he and Murphy work together to create hype, whether it's Ajie's single sales or Murphy's album sales, it will be very beneficial. Besides, Sister Ling, I'm not asking Murphy to sacrifice anything. I'm just asking you to take a few photos with Ajie. Just like last time, you can pretend that you don't know. After this matter becomes popular, the company will organize a press conference for you to clarify. Mo Xiaowan sneered and said, Sister Ling, Jujie's song Hehe, if I remember correctly, it's called Mistress, right? Letting our sister Faye and him do this kind of hype, regardless of whether the fans will buy it or not after the clarification. This will cause a very serious image loss to our sister Faye. Sister Ling, haven't you considered this problem? Murphy, who was next to her, had already pinched the folds of her skirt, her emotions rolling in her heart. Mo Xiaowan, pay attention to your tone. I'm your boss. Niu Meiling finally couldn't help but scold her. Under Niu Meiling's scolding, Mo Xiaochuan's momentum weakened and she stood there, not knowing what to say. Fortunately, Niu Meiling did not intend to fall out with them. Her face softened and she began to play the emotional card. Murphy, we've known each other for more than 10 years. After talking about the past, she finally came back and said with a sigh, it's not that Sister Ling is too harsh on you, but it's also a critical time for Ajie's career development. You know his relationship with me, even his father asked me to help him. Sister Ling also had no choice but to let you support Ajie. Moreover, this matter is also beneficial to you. Seeing that Sister Ling has supported you for so many years, can you help Sister Ling with this? It looked like Niu Meiling was begging Murphy, but for people like them, as long as they could get things done, what was dignity? However, Murphy stood up and turned her head away, unwilling to look directly at her. She only said coldly, I'm sorry, Sister Ling, I can't do this. After saying that, she turned around and left. For so many years, this was the first time that Mo Fei left without saying a word of courtesy. Mo Xiaowan fell behind. She smiled awkwardly at Niu Meiling and tried to smooth things over for Murphy. Sister Ling, look at Sister Fei's temper. Once she gets angry, she forgets all etiquette. You're a magnanimous person. Don't mind it. However, this matter really can't be considered. Which star in the company do you think is suitable, and let her work with Zhu Jie? Murphy did not care about what happened after that. Her face was cold as she asked Mo Xiaowan to send her home. At noon, Yang Yi happened to be at home. He knew that Murphy would be back, so he prepared food early. However, before he could bring the food out of the kitchen, Murphy threw herself into his arms and hugged Yang Yi's waist tightly. What's wrong? What's wrong? Yang Yi was a little confused as he gently patted her back. Yang Yi, have you finished setting up the studio you're going to open for me? I don't want to renew the contract with Sister Ling anymore. I want to be with you. Murphy raised her head, but her face was covered in tears. What happened? Be good, don't worry. Sit down and tell me slowly. Yang Yi saw that Murphy was crying so hard for the first time. His heart became anxious, but he still controlled his temper and gently hugged her to sit down on the sofa. Murphy choked and told Yang Yi everything that happened today. In the end, she broke down and said, I thought Sister Ling was a good person, but I didn't expect her to hurt me again and again. I hate her now. I don't want to stay in Tianmei. Yang Yi, after my contract is up, let's open a studio together, okay? You promised me that you would take good care of me. Right now, Murphy's heart was very uncomfortable. It was as if she had been betrayed. For the first time, she saw the face of the person she had trusted for more than 10 years. Only then did she realize that this person wasn't good at all. It wasn't like what she had imagined, taking care of her like a daughter. That person didn't treat her like a daughter, but still chose to betray her in the face of benefits. Murphy, whose thoughts were in a mess, felt that her worldview was collapsing. Fortunately, she still had Yang Yi to rely on. You said that Zhu Jie asked Sister Ling, and then Sister Ling wanted you to have a scandal with him? Yang Yi asked with a frown. Wasn't it too much? I was so angry that I couldn't speak. Murphy pouted and said with grievance. Too much. Yang Yi's eyes burned with anger. When he gave Zhu Jie the song, he only thought it was fun and wanted to trick Zhu Jie. He really didn't think that the song would affect his woman in the end. But this Jujia was also looking for death. Instead of singing properly and being a popular person on variety shows, he had to provoke him. Yang Yi was like a cat, slightly narrowing his eyes. His gaze was very sharp, but he wouldn't let Murphy see it. "Don't worry, leave this matter to me." Yang Yi gently stroked Murphy's soft hair and comforted her. "With me here, no one can bully you. Can you solve it?" "But I really don't want to renew the contract with Sister Ling," Murphy said with some surprise. "I'll solve it. You don't have to renew the contract with her. Our studio is already set up. You can come over at any time, even if you have to pay the penalty." Yang Yi was now thinking about how to get revenge for Murphy. "There's no need to pay the penalty. As long as this Jujia doesn't bother me anymore, after my contract expires, I will explain it to Sister Ling." Murphy still wanted to part on good terms. "Don't worry." Yang Yi chuckled. "I believe you." Murphy's sad mood finally found a trace of comfort. She hugged Yang Yi and smiled happily. This silly woman, after knowing that Yang Yi had Chen Yijia invite her, she began to believe in Yang Yi's seemingly unfathomable connections. Chapter 333. Murphy thought that Yang Yi would use his connections to force Jujia and Sister Ling to take a step back. However, she was too naive. Yang Yi didn't have such powerful connections and couldn't come up with any clever ideas. All he could think of was the simplest and most violent method that he was most used to. The next day, Mo Fei set off for Shanghai again. After Yang Yi sent Cici to the kindergarten, he drove to the place where Tianmei Company was located. He hid in a relatively hidden alley and stared straight at the door of the building, patiently waiting for the main character to appear. Yang Yi originally thought that it would take a few days, but he didn't expect that the familiar face would appear in front of him in a short while. It was really fate, too wonderful for words. On the first floor of Tianmei Company, Jujia was laughing with the two beautiful receptionists. At this moment, he raised his hand to look at his watch and shrugged. "Forget it. I'll go back and catch up on my sleep. Xiaoxia, if my aunt comes back, let me know." "Got it, Brother Jia." The two beauties laughed so hard that their bodies trembled. Brother Jia repeatedly called him Brother Jia repeatedly. After the song became popular, Jujia was also very busy. He finally had a few days of rest. He actually wanted to go to the nightclub or go to the soup. Anyway, he was too lazy to come back to the company. However, Duluan told him that Murphy came back yesterday and asked him to hurry Niu Meiling and check on the situation. However, Niu Meiling seemed to be avoiding him and didn't come to the company today. The eunuch is really anxious. Why is this Duluan more anxious than me about this result? Jujia was a little annoyed by Duluan's urging and couldn't help but mutter in his heart. He left the company and directly got into the sports car that he left outside to go home and catch up on his sleep. However, he didn't notice that someone was following behind his car. Jujia's home in Jiang City was an independent villa in the coastal area. When he reached home and got out of the car, he was about to take out his keys to open the door when a big hand suddenly stretched out from the side. The palm wind was like a knife, chopping at the back of his neck. Before Jujia could react, his vision turned black and he fainted. When Jujia woke up again, he found that he was not in front of his own villa, but in a place that seemed to be an abandoned factory. Furthermore, he was tied to a pillar and was almost stripped naked in a shameful position. Jujia struggled for a moment, but he couldn't move. The fear in his heart made him tremble uncontrollably. "Actually, I really want to cut you in half." A cold voice came from the side. Jujia turned his head and saw a tall and cold man standing in the light of the sun shining in from the factory entrance. With some backlighting, he could only see a shining shadow. However, the long knife in the other party's hand refracted the light of the sun. It seemed as sharp as a divine weapon in a fantasy novel, making Jujia tremble in fear. Don't. Let's talk nicely. Let's talk nicely. I can give you any amount of money you want." Jujia almost cried as he hurriedly begged. This begging made Yang Yi reminisce a little. He remembered that the last fat man who knelt on the ground and begged for mercy had his throat slit with a knife. There was no sloppiness, and it didn't hurt very much. Of course, Yang Yi was only reminiscing about the past, But he didn't want to return to that kind of life, so he only tied Jujie up to scare him. If he really wanted to kill him, how could Yang Yi let him see his face? Therefore, in Jujie's eyes, Yang Yi slowly walked over in the light of the sun, like a demon coming through a wormhole, ferocious and terrifying. The demon raised his knife. Although he only stabbed it heavily into the ground in the end, Jujie almost peed his pants in fear. Do you know why I captured you? Yang Yi snorted and asked. Jujie trembled and asked, Why? No matter why, I'm sorry. I was wrong. It's all my fault. I apologize to you. You are a magnanimous person, so please spare me. Jujie quickly added. At this moment his mouth became nimble. There are two people in this world that you can't afford to offend. One is God, and the other is me. Of all the things you could have done, you just had to provoke me. Tell me, isn't it good to be alive? Yang Yi said coldly. Yes, it's my fault, but I don't know you. Did you find the wrong person? How did I provoke you? Jujie felt very wronged. He had never seen Yang Yi before, and he hadn't been going around to make enemies recently. Yang Yi remembered that he hadn't introduced himself yet. He snorted and said, Wrong person? Jujie, you look like this. I can recognize you even if you turn into ashes. Murphy is my woman. Tell me, did you provoke me? Murphy. Jujie suddenly understood. He regretted it in his heart. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have listened to Du Luan's nonsense and let Murphy spread rumors with him. He didn't know that Murphy had a man, and that he was a big killing god. If he had known, how could he have dared to do anything to her? If it was him, he would probably chop himself into pieces. Wait a minute, he couldn't chop himself into pieces. Jujie felt that he could still save himself. I was wrong. Big brother, I was really wrong. Jujie's tears fell. He choked and said, I shouldn't have done those stupid things. No, it's not stupid. It's just hype. I was stupid. Please let me go. I'll ask my aunt to withdraw those requests, okay? I won't have any rumors with Sister Murphy. Please give me a chance. He was so scared that his words were somewhat incoherent. This was the effect that Yang Yi wanted. But in order to make Jujie remember it more deeply, he didn't say a word. He pulled out his sword and stabbed it into the ground. Suddenly, he chopped a big piece of wood next to him. That seemingly sturdy piece of wood was split open by Yang Yi's sword. Although the direction of the chopping was on the other side, Jujie's heart trembled. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants. If the chopping came this way, he was afraid that he would die. Have you really thought it through? You really won't harass my Murphy again? Yang Yi grinned at him. His white teeth in Jujie's eyes were as scary as the devil's fangs. Really, I swear. Jujie nodded his head like a chicken pecking rice. He said with a trembling voice. He didn't want to die. He still wanted to enjoy his youth and enjoy his life. Yang Yi chuckled. That's right. You say, why are you so stupid? Of all the people you could provoke, you had to provoke Murphy, right? Jujie seemed to see a glimmer of hope. He quickly smiled apologetically and said yes. In his heart, Jujie really wanted to avoid Murphy in the future. Don't mention anything about calling the police. His life was more important. Jujie didn't dare to talk about the law with these outlaws. If the police couldn't catch him, he would be on tenterhooks again. He didn't know when a knife would stab him. Yang Yi was very satisfied with Jujie's attitude. He also flattered the principle of giving carrots after carrots. He chuckled and said, Be a good alternative singer. Don't forget, who gave you the song Mistress? Jujie suddenly widened his eyes and looked at Yang Yi in surprise. How did he know this? Everyone thought that Mistress was written by Jujie himself. In this world, only 3 people knew that was not the case. These 3 people, Du Luan ruled out. Then the person in front of him could only be. Chapter 334. Muziang? You are Muziang. Jujie suddenly realized something and looked at Yang Yi in surprise. Muziang was Murphy's man? This made sense. No wonder he could write 12 songs for Mo Fei, which was unprecedented. Yang Yi wanted Jujie to know his identity. He smiled faintly and said, It seems that you are very smart. But smart people should know that since I can make you famous, I also have the ability to make you go back to your original state. The record of our previous transaction is still there. At most, I will give up the money and Mu Xiang's reputation. I will sue you to get back the copyright of this song. Guess what the judge will say? Yang Yi threatened in a low voice. Needless to say, the copyright would definitely be awarded back to Yang Yi. The copyright protection in this world was very strict. There was a similar case before. A songwriter sued a singer in court, saying that he was cheated by the singer and sold his song. But he didn't know that he had also sold the copyright of his work. So the judge confiscated the money from the illegal transaction and gave the copyright back to the original author. He said that he was cheated, but who could tell whether it was a transaction or not? Maybe he felt that he had lost money after selling it, so he pretended not to know. Of course, once this matter was exposed, Yang Yi wouldn't be able to get any benefits even if he got back the copyright of the third party. Mu Xiang's reputation would plummet, and he would be despised by everyone. It could be said that it would be a life and death struggle. It was definitely not worth it, and it would affect Murphy. Yang Yi just wanted to scare Zhu Jie. But Zhu Jie believed it and was scared. They had considered the consequences before buying the song. But he and Du Luan thought that Mu Xiang cherished his reputation and wouldn't do something like that. But now it seemed that Yang Yi was very crazy. He dared to kill him. How could he not do such a small thing? It would be better to kill Zhu Jie than to turn him from a popular person to a despised person. It was easy to go from frugal to extravagant, but difficult to go from extravagant to frugal. Now that Zhu Jie was used to the glory of being a celebrity, he was also afraid of losing it. I already said that I won't dare to provoke Sister Murphy anymore. What else do you want? Zhu Jie couldn't help but cry like a little wife. At most, I'll compensate you with money. Don't kill me, and don't take this song away. It wasn't easy for me to become famous. It was quite sad. Those who heard it were sad, and those who heard it shed tears. Are you scared now? Why didn't you feel at ease singing your songs before? You spend all day pondering about some crooked ways? Yang Yi was secretly delighted. It was exactly as he had imagined. Zhu Jie sobbed and said, I just wanted to win the championship. Yang Yi's tone relaxed a little and said lightly, if you want to be number one, you still need time to accumulate. You want to become a god with one song? You think the entertainment circle is too simple. Originally, I thought that you were quite interesting. I wanted to write another song for you to make you popular again. But it seems that your performance really dissatisfied me. Yang Yi finally showed his dates. Really? You really want to write another song for me? Yang Yi said so much, but Zhu Jie only heard one sentence. He stopped crying and looked at Yang Yi in surprise. Mu Xiang's songs were really godly. Now that Zhu Jie saw Chen Yijie, Murphy and his own achievements, he already had a blind worship for Mu Xiang. A song mistress made him popular. If he wrote another one, wouldn't he ascend to heaven? Do you think it's possible? You've made me want to kill you. Yang Yi chuckled. I can change it. I can make up for it. When I go back, I'll immediately tell my aunt, and that is Sister Ling, tell her not to find trouble with Murphy. Then, I promise that I won't think of these crooked things again. Zhu Jie quickly said. His current performance was like a primary school student who did something wrong and begged his mother for another chance. That's not enough. I need you to be my eyes and ears in Tianmei. If there's any movement against Murphy, you have to inform me. Yang Yi looked into his eyes and said. You can rest assured. Don't even talk about informing. If anyone dares to touch our sister Murphy, I'll be the first to disagree. Zhu Jie twisted on the pillar and said excitedly, my dad has shares in Tianmei. No one dares to disobey my words. But now Zhu Jie had changed sides. For the sake of the song Mu Xiang, he began to join Mo Fei's camp. What is backbone? Zhu Jie has never seen it before. Yang Yi was overjoyed. Originally, he said that this guy was interesting, but now it seemed that he was really a little interesting. With this kind of appearance, he might even be a promising talent. If I do this, will you be able to write a song for me? Zhu Jie timidly looked at Yang Yi and asked. Yang Yi didn't say a word. Suddenly he lit up his knife and slashed at Zhu Jie. As he screamed in horror, The rope that tied him up broke and he floated down like a butterfly. Jujia closed his eyes for a while and screamed for a while. Only then did he realize that he was fine and could move. He felt around his body to make sure that he wasn't short. Only then did he turn his head to look at Yang Yi in shock. Just talk and no action won't do. Whether I'll write a song for you or not depends on your performance. Yang Yi smoothly sheathed his knife and lightly said, Don't worry, Muziang. Big brother, just watch. I will definitely perform well. I guarantee that no one will touch Sister Murphy. Jujia patted his chest. Scheming against each other was actually very tiring. Yang Yi didn't like himself. Fortunately, in the afternoon, when he received Shishi, the little girl's innocent smile blew away the haze in Yang Yi's heart. Papa, Papa, let me tell you something big. The little girl hugged her father's neck and said softly in her father's ear. A sincere smile appeared on Yang Yi's face. What big thing? It's me, Chen Shiyin, Xian Air, Chi-Chi, and Nan Zhaoyu. We are going to act in a movie. Shishi counted the names with her fingers and said, why do you want to act in a movie? What movie? Yang Yi raised his eyebrows. Could it be that there is a blind boy who dares to deceive my daughter? The knife is still hidden in the trunk. Acting in Papa's movie. Shishi said matter-of-factly. Chen Shiyin, Xian Air, Chi-Chi, and Nan Zhaoyu are all super fond of acting in movies. Hee, I also want to act in a movie. Then we will all act in Papa's movie. It seemed that the little girl didn't care about the rules at all. In her opinion, acting in a movie was like eating and drinking. There was no need for any audition at all. She could act as long as she came. Who told you that you can act in Papa's movie? Yang Yi was confused by his daughter's logic. No one. I told them that. Acting in a movie is super fun. Shishi looked at her father confusedly and said. At this time, Lan Xian had already jumped over. Uncle Yang, I want to act in a movie with you. Now it's about acting in a movie with me? The children's ability to understand was really strange. Not acting in a movie with Uncle. Uncle doesn't act in a movie. Yang Yi said with a headache. Hee, Xian Air, you're acting in a movie with me. Shishi looked down from her father's arms and said with a smile. Okay then, I'll act in a movie with Shishi. Lan Xian's mind was filled with delicious food. She licked her lips and said expectantly. Uncle Yang, can we? How could it be? In this micro-movie of his, there were no children's roles. How could he squeeze in so many children? Moreover, if he randomly changed the script, it would be strange if Du Yuanlei was willing. Yang Yi had an idea and said, That's not possible. You have to ask your father first. Your father has to agree. My father? Lan Xian tilted her head and thought for a while. She pulled Yang Yi's hand and pleaded. Uncle Yang, can you call my father and ask him if it's possible? He's not at home. Chapter 335. Looking at Lan Xian's hopeful eyes and Shishi's pleading for her father's help, Yang Yi had no choice but to take out his phone and call Lan Cao Kai. While waiting for the busy Lan Cao Kai to answer the phone, Yang Yi gave Lan Xian a heads up. Xian Air, let me tell you first, your father probably won't agree. Before he could finish, the phone was picked up and Lan Cao Kai's loud voice came through. Brother Yang, it's rare for you to take the initiative to call me. What's the matter? Yang Yi told him about Lan Xian and a few other girls who wanted to join him in a movie. He tried to make the situation worse. Mine is just a micro-movie, a small movie. It's not a big production at all, and they're still so young. I'm afraid they don't know how to make it and can't bear the hardships. What Yang Yi wanted to hear now was Lan Cao Kai's rejection. He had even simulated the lines for Boss Lan. No, what movie? Isn't this nonsense? What do a few brats know? However, Lan Cao Kai's indifferent voice came through the phone. So it's about this. It's no big deal. Xian Air also told me that she wanted to act in a movie. I thought it was something big. Anyway, it's just a small production. Why don't I invest some money in you, and you can ask the director if he can add a few more people. Lan Cao Kai's voice was as loud as his daughter's. Lan Xian and Shishi both heard it. The two girls looked at each other excitedly. However, Yang Yi was a little confused. The script was different from what he had imagined. Hey Brother Yang, go ahead and ask. How much money do they want? Is 2 million enough? The cap is 10 million. Ask the director to name a price. Do you hear me? Brother Yang, Brother Yang? Lance Haokai's voice kept coming from the phone. No need for money. It's not about money. Yang Yi smiled bitterly. Then what's the problem? Hey, it's not a big deal. Isn't it just a few kids who want to play? Lance Haokai was a little confused. Or is there a problem with your director? Yang Yi could only sigh. There's no problem with anyone. Okay, since you agree to let them act in the movie, I'll think of a way. Lance Haokai said with satisfaction. That's it, if you need money tell me, I'll give you 10 million first. Yang Yi said perfunctorily and hung up on Lance Haokai. Yang's mothers also said. She, my father agreed. I want to act in the movie to act. I'll act and said. She, my father agree. I'll act to act with you. Yes, to me, to be to me. Yes, azes tooses yeses to access to hers a her a. At this moment. To be a to make to act. Yang Yi looked at his daughter's happy appearance and shook his head helplessly. Forget it. I won't ask the other children's parents for their opinions. I'll think of a way to solve it myself. Anyway, there are already 2 children. In the evening, after Yang Yi coaxed Shishi to sleep, he went to the study and turned on the computer that had been turned on all the time. There was a recording program running on the computer screen. According to the program, every hour's recording would be divided into separate files and saved. Yang Yi had listened to the recording in the afternoon. He put on his headphones, clicked on the new audio, and listened to it at 2 times the speed. The sounds in the headphones were all the conversations between Zhu Jie, the people around him, and the people he was calling. Today, when he went to deal with Murphy's matter, Yang Yi didn't act rashly. On the contrary, he made a lot of preparations such as Plan A and Plan B. Plan B was to observe Zhu Jie's reaction. If this person was too shrewd and difficult to control, Yang Yi wouldn't mind feeding him to the fishes. Fortunately, Zhu Jie was just like what he knew. This person was a playboy but was as timid as a mouse. Thus, Plan A was carried out exceptionally smoothly. Even so, it seemed that Yang Yi had completely trusted Zhu Jie and had taken him in as one of his own. However, in reality, Yang Yi didn't let his guard down. He still had a trick up his sleeve. When Zhu Jie was unconscious, Yang Yi had already placed a listening device in Zhu Jie's phone. Fortunately, mobile phones in this era could all be replaced with batteries, so it wasn't difficult to remove the back cover. This listening device was made by Yang Yi himself. It was a piece of advanced technology that he had brought over from his previous life. He only needed to use a new mobile phone card that could go online as a transmission medium to transmit the content of the eavesdropping to the computer in Yang Yi's study, which was more than 10 kilometers away. Of course, the power source was also stolen from Zhu Jie's phone. It wouldn't be long before Zhu Jie complained that his phone was broken. Speaking of eavesdropping, it was necessary to mention Yang Yi's supplementary plan to Plan A. If Zhu Jie didn't listen and went back on his words, as long as Yang Yi felt that there was a slight threat, he would mercilessly erase him and the person who leaked the information from this world. He wouldn't give them a chance to expose themselves. However, the recording in the afternoon was still okay. Zhu Jie was still in shock. He was trembling at home and talking to himself for a long time, but he didn't have any intention of calling the police or taking revenge on Murphy. Instead, after he calmed down, he became arrogant. He felt that he was riding on Mu Xiang's coattails, and that he wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing anymore. He was also obsessed with himself, thinking that one day he would become the most famous singer. After Yang Yi heard this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He lowered his guard against this idiot a lot. He was also temporarily relieved to pick up Shishi and bring her back. There was a new development in the evening. From the content of the eavesdropping, after Zhu Jie came back to his senses, he couldn't wait to call Niu Meiling and ask her to cancel the hype plan. He even said with conviction, "Auntie, I've thought it through. I want to become the most powerful man in the Chinese music industry, so I don't need this hype at all." Naturally, Niu Meiling was almost angered to death by Zhu Jie's change. who was the one who shamelessly begged her for help. Now that her relationship with Murphy was a little strained, he changed his mind and said that he didn't want to play this game anymore. Neo Miling couldn't help but put on the airs of an elder and scolded Ju Jie sternly. However, Ju Jie was like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of being scalded. He smiled and begged for mercy. Neo Miling really couldn't do anything to him. So this matter was perfectly resolved. Yang Yi temporarily let go of his worries and put down his earphones. However, the eavesdropping would still continue. Yang Yi had to observe for a few days and confirm that Ju Jie was no longer a threat before he completely let him go. Ju Jie's problem could be said to be resolved for the time being, but Yang Yi's own problem had just emerged. He held the script of the fairy tale and carefully pondered over it, looking for a scene that could fit these little girls in. The number of scenes was not important. As long as they could act in a scene, it would be good enough. However, no matter how he looked, Yang Yi couldn't find a scene in this micro-movie that was suitable for children to appear in. Not to mention children, other than the two main leads, there weren't many other supporting roles in this movie. He couldn't just forcefully change the script, right? Wouldn't that be ruining a classic? Yang Yi couldn't do such a thing. What should he do? Got it. Yang Yi suddenly thought of an idea. Chapter 336. The next day, Shishi was saying goodbye to her father at the gate of the kindergarten. But she happened to bump into young Luochi, who was sent by her mother on a women's motorcycle. The little girl cried out in surprise and immediately ran over. She pulled her friend, who had just gotten off the car, and said, "Chi-Chi, let me tell you. My father said that we can act in a movie. Xan Air knows." She really wanted to tell her friends the good news, and she had been holding it in for the whole night. So much so that Cece only remembered to greet her after she finished speaking. She waved her cute cotton-gloved hands and called out obediently, "Hello, Auntie Wu. Your father is so nice, then we can play together again." Young Luochi tugged at the scarf covering her face, and a joyful smile appeared on her face. The two girls were in a good mood the whole morning. After bidding farewell to their respective parents, they held hands and chatted as they walked into the kindergarten. Wu Yu was free at this time. She straddled the women's motorcycle and put on the gloves that she had taken off to tie the collar of her daughter's woolen hat. She smiled and said to Yang Yi, "Yang Yi, I didn't expect it to be true. Chi-Chi has been talking about it at home for the past 2 days. I thought it was a joke between the children." Yang Yi shook his head with a wry smile and said, "No, I was also caught off guard." Suddenly, Shishi ran over with a few children and said that they wanted to act in a movie. If it was only Shishi who asked, I could find an excuse to make them give up the idea, but Xian Air's father also joined in the fun. After figuring out the ins and outs of the matter, Wu Yu understood. She smiled and said, "So that's the case." The children misunderstood. You have to tell Shishi clearly what kind of promise can't be made to others easily in the future. Otherwise, she will suffer losses in the future. Yang Yi nodded in agreement. As for Chi-Chi, I'll go back and explain it to her, okay? You don't have to think about her. She has really brought you so much trouble. Wu Yu hesitated and said, "That won't be necessary. I thought of an idea last night. I'll ask the director to arrange a scene for them. They'll play the part of the audience. However, this scene was filmed separately and will not be edited into the main movie. After the filming is done, I will get the director to help make an additional video and insert this scene into our micro-movie. We will burn it into a disc and give it to the children's parents," Yang Yi said. To put it bluntly, they were spending extra money to film a scene of the children. However, the video that included this unplanned scene would only be seen by the children and their parents for fun. For example, Wu Yu, you can show this movie to Chi-Chi later. That way, she will also think that she has filmed a movie. Yang Yi smiled bitterly and said, "I have no choice." In order not to affect the quality of the movie, I can only tell the children a white lie. Don't worry, Yang Yi. It's not easy for you either. I understand. It doesn't matter if it's really a movie or not. As long as the children have fun during the filming process, it will be a good experience for them. Wu Yu comforted Yang Yi with a smile. Yang Yi had this idea, but he had not discussed it with Du Yuanlei. He was even a little worried that Du Yuanlei might misunderstand his intentions. However, as a movie investor who had been married for the first time, he had underestimated the director's ability to bear the consequences. Although Du Yuanlei was just a small-time director without any fame, what kind of scene had she not seen before? Other investors would directly stuff people in to be the main lead, or ask me to change the plot. Teacher Yang, your small request is much better than those. Du Yuanlei smiled after listening to Yang Yi's words. Yang Yi's tone of discussion, and the fact that he took the initiative to ask for an independent scene made Du Yuanlei feel touched. But there's no need to film a scene for the children. I have an idea. Du Yuanlei said to Yang Yi, after Su Shishir's nose bled. Didn't Ah Guang bring her to the hospital for a checkup? We can add an extra scene here. When they walk through the hospital hall, the children will be in the background. There are 5 children in the hospital? Wouldn't it be a little abrupt? Yang Yi knitted his brows and said, this isn't a hospital for women and children. Then we will have to give these children a good setting. For example, one of them will wear a bandage and pretend to break his arm. Then the other children will come to visit him. Of course, we will also need an adult to take care of them. Du Yuanlei smiled as she pointed at Yang Yi. Me. Yang Yi was surprised. He did not expect that he would be involved in this matter. That's right. Teacher Yang, you will naturally have to participate. With you taking care of them, the children will be obedient. Du Yuanlei said with a smile. What am I acting for? I don't even know how to act. Yang Yi knitted his brows and bitterly smiled. You don't need to know how to act. You will just be in the background. The camera will just sweep past you. Brother Yang, don't you want the children to be in the camera? This is the best opportunity. You don't have to lie to them. This is really filming. Yang Yi actually thought that Du Yuanlei's idea was quite good. They could put the 5 children into this micro-movie without leaving any trace. It would not be abrupt or unreasonable. But to ask him to act? But who asked him to be involved with these little guys? Who asked Shishi to boast in front of her friends? Yang Yi felt that he really had to talk to Shishi about this problem. Okay, we will follow your arrangement. But I have one more request. I want the only boy among the 5 children to wear a bandage. Yang Yi gritted his teeth and said to Du Yuanlei. Du Yuanlei was stunned for a moment and smiled. This is not a problem. It is the same for any child as long as he is willing. Willing, of course he is willing. If he is not willing, then I will give him a discount. Who asked him to revolve around my daughter all day? At noon, as expected, Yang Yi received a call from Murphy. Murphy, who had recorded a radio program in the early hours of the morning, should have just woken up. But she was in good spirits and her voice was filled with joy. Yang Yi, Sister Ling suddenly called me today. She apologized to me for what happened 2 days ago. Her attitude was very good. Murphy was relieved of a burden, and was in a happy mood. She was anxious to share this news with Yang Yi. She also promised me that this time she was just obsessed and listened to other people's slanderous words. In the future, she will not bother me with this kind of thing and let me sing in peace. Sure enough, it was Sister Ling. Yang Yi secretly sneered in his heart. All of a sudden, she had cleanly pushed herself away, and even put on an attitude of admitting her mistake and changing. Murphy, after she said that, are you going to forgive her? Yang Yi couldn't help but ask. How can that be? I am still very angry, but I did not continue to be in a deadlock with Sister Ling. Even if she apologized, I feel that I have seen what kind of person Sister Ling is. Next time, if possible, she will still not care about my feelings and arrange some bad things for me. Murphy felt that Yang Yi had misunderstood her. She said with some grievance. Anyway, after the contract is over, I don't want to renew it with Sister Ling. I want to open a studio with you. For this record, I will work hard and strive to get good results. It can be considered as repaying Sister Ling for taking care of me for more than 10 years. Well, it's best that you can understand. Yang Yi laughed. This guy is actually looking down on me. Murphy rebuked Yang Yi. Then she paused and asked, Yang Yi, tell me the truth. For Sister Ling to have such a big change, was it because of you? After Murphy received Niu Miling's call, she had been suspicious of this question. She felt that Niu Miling's sudden 180-degree change in attitude was very strange. Yeah. Yang Yi didn't explain much, and only responded with a nasal sound. There was no need to let Murphy know the details. Murphy also didn't want to know the details. She didn't like such complicated things. After getting the answer she wanted, she was moved and said, "Thank you, Yang Yi. You have always supported me." Chapter 337. In the past few days, Du Yuanlei had finished filming the scene indoors, and the crew had left the house. Yang Huan's eyes darted around, and she looked back 3 times with every step she took. She slowly moved to Yang Yi's booth. "Big brother." Yang Huan sat opposite Yang Yi and called out softly. She even dragged her voice, which was completely different from her usual energetic self. "What's wrong?" Yang Yi closed the book in his hand and raised his eyebrows. Yang Yi had long noticed her movements, but he didn't say anything and didn't take the initiative to speak. This girl must have something to ask of him, and it might not be a small matter. Yang Huan didn't get straight to the point. Instead, she started to talk about family matters. "Big brother, didn't you send money to us a few days ago? Second brother told me that mom and dad wanted to use the money to build a new house for him. He could use it when he got married after the new year, but second brother didn't agree. He wanted to renovate our house first so that you could have a place to stay at home." Yang Qing also knew that Yang Yi had a child, but he was still helping to hide it. The 3 of them had discussed this matter together. Instead of saying it in advance and making it hard for the parents to accept, it was better to wait until the spring festival, when Yang Yi brought the whole family back. For the sake of his eldest granddaughter, Father Yang wouldn't break Yang Yi's legs, right? It was also because of the issue of the child that Yang Qing had to think more. He felt that it was not a problem for Yang Yi to come back by himself, but when the child came back, he could not be like them, living in a dilapidated tile-roofed house. The children in the city were all delicate. Would they be able to get used to the environment in the countryside? Therefore, Yang Qing thought that there was still a month to renovate the house. He wanted to build at least a 2-story house, paint the walls, and put up tiles in Yang Yi's room. When Yang Huan told Yang Yi about Yang Qing's plan, Yang Yi was touched by his second brother. "Big brother, mom and dad don't want to renovate the house. They said that second brother's wedding should be put aside first. What do you think we should do?" Yang Huan blinked and asked. The solution was simple. Even Yang Huan had thought of it. She was just trying to find something to talk about. Yang Yi shook his head. "This is simple. Yang Qing doesn't need to build another house. I'll send some money back. You can ask Yang Qing to demolish the house and rebuild the foundation. Build a 3- or 4-story house. The first floor will be for mom and dad. They are getting older, so they don't need to climb the stairs to stay on the first floor. Yang Qing and his wife will stay on the second floor, so they can take care of mom and dad. The 3rd or 4th floor can be reserved for you and me. Anyway, we're usually outside and only go back during holidays. It doesn't matter if we stay on the top floor. Don't just put tiles in my room. Ask him to spend more money on renovation and furniture. Help me persuade Yang Qing. We don't need that money now. Living comfortably is more important." Yang Yi said to Yang Huan. Yang Yi was closer to Yang Huan now. He didn't have as much freedom to communicate with Yang Qing as he did with Yang Huan. After all, Yang Qing basically stayed in the village, unlike Yang Huan, who went to the county to study for a few years. They couldn't talk about the same topics, so Yang Huan was more than willing to be their lubricant. "Okay," Yang Huan said with a smile. "By the way, big brother, speaking of houses, I suddenly thought of something." Sure enough, a look of understanding flashed across Yang Yi's eyes. He knew that Yang Huan must have something on his mind when he suddenly came looking for him and hesitated. The family matter aside, Yang Huan definitely had something to ask of him. "Hasn't the movie Fairy Tale been moved out of that house? Xiaoguo told me that he doesn't know what he's doing with that house. It's usually empty. So, I'm thinking of moving there," Yang Huan said hesitantly. Yang Yi didn't wait for her to finish. He raised his eyebrows and interrupted her. "No, you can't." His objection came so quickly and so harshly that Yang Huan didn't expect it. Yang Yi's voice had a hint of anger. He asked, "Did Guizi bewitch you?" I knew that he had ulterior motives for renting that house. How dare he have designs on you? Where's my knife? It's fine if I don't have a knife. I'll close the door, and let Xiao Guai bite him to death. In Yang Yi's heart, Guizi was a black and white photo with a single word on it, pawn. Big brother, you misunderstood. Yang Huan only realized that she had tricked her teammate. She hurriedly explained to Yang Yi. Xiao Guai didn't say anything to me. I'm the one who wants to move out. You're living well at home. Why do you want to move out? Yang Yi was sure that it was Guizi's fault. Because I want to study with Sister Ding Xiang. Yang Huan had already thought of an excuse. She explained. Isn't there 2 rooms in that house? I'll take 1 room, and Sister Ding Xiang will take the other. Sister Ding Xiang doesn't have to go back to the dormitory. She can study with Sister Ding Xiang at night. Studying with you and sister-in-law at home is so long at night. There's no learning atmosphere at all. Yang Huan said meaningfully. Sister Ding Xiang is very serious. She will study and prepare when she goes back. Studying with her can help each other improve. Yang Huan's student status had been arranged by Guizi's father to enroll her in a private high school in Jiang City. Because it was a private high school, it didn't matter whether Yang Huan went to school or not. Yang Yi didn't care about Yang Huan's choice to study at home. He even bought a lot of revision materials for Yang Huan at home. Based on Ding Xiang's feedback and his frequent checkups, Yang Huan still had time to study. There was probably no chance for her to get into a key university. However, if she could pass the art test, Guizi and Ding Xiang said that the cultural test wouldn't be a big problem. Don't ruin your sister Ding Xiang. She doesn't have the money to rent a house with you and play around with you. Ding Xiang usually doesn't buy any nice clothes and saves all her money. I heard that her grandma is sick. Yang Yi felt that it was inappropriate. He couldn't be so selfish as to ignore Ding Xiang's feelings for his sister. Hee, I know. That's why I want to discuss with you. You can take that house and rent it. You can treat it as a staff dormitory. That way, Sister Ding Xiang won't have to run so far back to the dormitory after closing the shop at night. It's not safe on the way, Yang Huan said. That was a good idea. Yang Yi frowned and asked suspiciously. Is it really for studying? You and Ding Xiang live together? Won't Guizi sneak in? Yang Huan finally understood his concern. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How can that be? Brother, men are not welcome in girls' dormitories. Xiao Guo won't be able to come in the future. She stopped herself in time, but Yang Yi still understood what she meant. He coughed awkwardly and said, If that's the case, and you want to study hard for this year's art test, I can rent this house for you. Hee, brother, you're so nice. Yang Huan jumped up and hugged Yang Yi's arm intimately. But I'll let Ding Xiang supervise you in your study. If you don't study hard after you move out, I'll let you move back here immediately. Yang Yi warned her with a serious face. Yang Yi trusted Ding Xiang. He had made up his mind that he would not only let Ding Xiang supervise Yang Huan, but also keep an eye on Guizi, so that the brat wouldn't have any ideas about his sister. Yes, sir. Yang Huan smiled and saluted. Recently, she had watched a lot of Harbor City police movies with the excuse of studying acting. Chapter 338. Although in the beginning, due to the influence of public opinion, the album sales were not very good, but with the subsequent improvement of the reputation, whether it was the physical album sales or the online single sales, they began to gradually show a strong momentum. Murphy's song also counterattacked and caught up on the new song bestseller list. Finally, on January 9th, the song, In My Voice, completed its strong climb to the top, becoming the second song to reach the top of the album. And this was not the most important thing. What made the media exclaim was that on the bestseller list that day, 4 of the top 10 songs were actually from Murphy's new album. How many years had it been since they saw such a strong scene? In the top 10 list, 4 songs were written under the name of the same singer. Moreover, the results of these 4 songs were not bad. The first was In My Voice, the third was Love Me Don't Go, and the 7th was Carefree Sigh. There was also a song placed at the end of the album. At first, it was not taken seriously, and it had not been its turn to participate in the TV station's chart program. But since Murphy sang this song at the invitation of the radio station, its single sales on the internet immediately soared. Although it had just squeezed into the 10th place today, no one thought that it was only at the level of the 10th place. The music critics' evaluation of this song was very high, and it was not worse than Crossing the Sea to See You. One music critic even said that this song was his favorite. Murphy's album has 2 songs about the sea that can win awards, but if I had to choose the first, I would not choose Crossing the Sea to See You! Tian Mei had been keenly aware of this situation, so after communication, the song that Murphy would sing at Chun Ijia's concert in Yangcheng tomorrow would not be In My Voice, but this song. He believed that with the increase of exposure, this song would be like Coming Across the Sea to See You, and In My Voice, becoming the #1 song on the new best-selling chart. 3 songs on one album, this seemed to be breaking the record. Putting aside Murphy, whose influence was growing day by day, Yang Yi had another headache today. Because it was Saturday, it was also time for the children to shoot the movie. Du Yuanlei had already borrowed the school's hospital hall and arranged everything. She was just waiting for him and the other children. Yang Yi didn't have to pick up the children. The parents had already sent their children over. Except for Chen Shiyan's father, Chen Guoqiang, who was busy with work, and Lance Haokai, who only asked his family's driver to send Xian Air over. The other parents were reluctant to leave. For example, Wu Yu pretended to be sick and cancelled today's classes to watch her daughter's performance. Nan Zhaoyu was sent over by his father today. Nan Yiyun was also deeply interested in the children's first electric shock performance. He and Wu Yu both decided to stay and watch. Xiaoyu, you have to listen to Uncle Yang's instructions. Whatever he tells you to do, you have to do it, understand? In the coffee shop, Nan Yiyun sternly instructed Nan Zhaoyu in front of Yang Yi. Then he turned to Yang Yi and laughed. This child is a little stupid. If he does something wrong, you can teach him a lesson. No, Nan Zhaoyu is very smart. He will definitely perform well today, Yang Yi said, but when he looked at Nan Zhaoyu, he smiled and showed his teeth. He looked like a big wolf grandmother. Perhaps Nan Yiyun's way of education was too traditional. Nan Zhaoyu was indeed a little silly in front of his father. However, when he was with his friends, the little boy was a lot more lively. The 5 little guys chattered nonstop. It seemed that they had a lot of topics to talk about. The coffee shop was abnormally lively because of their noise. Until Yang Yi shouted, "Let's go!" The 5 little guys rushed out excitedly. Ding Xiang and Yang Huan's ears were quiet for a while. However, on the road, the little guys were also restless. At first, they even held hands and walked side by side. After a while, Chen Shiyan couldn't hold back her temper, and began to let go of her hand and run in front. Then all the little guys ran, giggling, and ran around Yang Yi, chasing and playing around. They were particularly energetic. "You can't catch up with me." Shishi's laughter was like a wind chime, echoing on the school road. "Shishi, wait for me." Yang Luoqi also became more lively. The little girl trotted behind. "Run slower," Yang Yi hurriedly shouted. He didn't have time to talk to Wu Yu and Nan Yiyun. He had to be careful. Otherwise, if he didn't pay attention, he might knock down the little guys who didn't watch the road. Okay, don't run. What if you fall down later? If you scratch your skin in winter, you'll cry out in pain later. Wu Yu took the initiative to help Yang Yi persuade the children. Nan Yiyun also put on a straight face and scolded Nan Zhaoyu. "How many times have I told you? Boys should do things calmly. Why are you running?" After a while, as if they had gone through 81 difficulties, they finally arrived at the set, the school hospital. "Is this a hospital?" The little guys hesitated at the door for a while. "I don't like to go to the hospital. In the hospital, I have to get injections. My butt hurts." Lan Xian was a little timid. She touched her little butt and took 2 steps back, hiding behind her friends. "I don't like injections either." Shishi's little nose twitched as if she was smelling something. She echoed, "The hospital stinks too." "I don't like it." "The hospital doesn't stink. I often go to my mother's hospital. It's clean," Chen Shiyan retorted with dissatisfaction. "But Chen Shiyan, Aren't you afraid of injections? Young Luochi was a little timid and asked weakly. I'm not afraid of injections. I've only had one injection, and I'm super brave. Chun Shuryan said proudly. You're not as good as me. But? Nan Zhaoyu wanted to say something, but after stammering for a long time, he was finally discouraged. He wanted to say that he was also very brave, but in fact he wasn't. When it came to injections, the little boy didn't even have the courage to pretend to be brave. Yang Yi was curious why they didn't come in. When he turned around, he happened to hear their conversation. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He rubbed Lan Xian and Shishi's little heads and said, Okay, you're not here for injections. You're here to shoot a movie. Have you forgotten? Don't be afraid. It took him a lot of persuasion to bring them in. Du Yuanlei came over with a board in her hands. After getting to know each other, she squatted down and explained the play to the children in a very gentle and patient manner, which was rare. To Yang Yi and Wu Yu's surprise, in front of director Du Yuanlei, the children were not naughty anymore. Instead, they were all well-behaved and stood there quietly to listen to Du Yuanlei. Yang Yi and the others didn't know that thanks to Shishi's previous publicity, the terrible image of Sister Du had been deeply ingrained in the children's minds. When they heard that it was the director, they didn't dare to make any more trouble. They were afraid of being scolded. After listening to the director's explanation, Du Yuanlei turned and walked away. The children became more lively, but they were still a little nervous. Lan Xian secretly glanced at Du Yuanlei's back and whispered, Shishi, is that beautiful Sister Du Yuanlei? She doesn't look fierce? Yes, Sister Du is very good. Shishi nodded, but then shook her head. She pouted and said, But Sister Du can be fierce sometimes. When acting in a movie, she will become fierce if she doesn't do it well. How fierce? Chun Shuryan asked. Very fierce, super fierce. As fierce as a tiger. Shishi found it difficult to find a sentence to describe Sister Du so scary. Young Luochi looked nervous. She was a little worried that she would be scolded by the director because she didn't do well. I'm scared too. Shishi, what if I don't do well and forget the lines? Nan Zhaoyu held Shishi's hand worriedly. He didn't notice that at this moment, a sharp gaze had swept over from behind. Don't be afraid. Zhaoyu, you forgot that you don't have the lines. Shishi laughed happily. Zhaoyu, come here. I'll bandage you. Yang Yi came over at this time. He was holding some bandages from the school hospital, and waved to Nan Zhaoyu. Chapter 339. Nan Zhaoyu obediently let go of Shishi's hand, and came to Yang Yi's side. He let Shishi's father wrap his arm with a bandage. Shishi and her friends also gathered around. The little girl curiously touched the rough bandage and asked, Papa, what is this? Bandage? Isn't Nan Zhaoyu injured? Bandage him up. Yang Yi softly explained to his daughter. Nan Zhaoyu came back to his senses and said weakly, But Uncle Yang, why am I injured? I'm not injured. I remember, Nan Zhaoyu, you are injured. That beautiful sister just said it. Lan Xian was behind him. She took advantage of Yang Yi squatting down and intimately hugged her favorite uncle's neck. But the chubby girl's legs were still a little short, so she could only try to stand on tiptoe. But I don't think this thing looks good. Can I tie a bow? Nan Zhaoyu weakly protested. What does a boy need to look good? Have you heard of the bloodstained style? Well, you probably haven't heard of it. Anyway, a boy needs to be injured to be handsome enough. Yang Yi tried his best to fool him. Yang Yi also came over curiously, and happened to hear the conversation between Nan Zhaoyu and Nan Zhaoyu. He nodded and said, Your Uncle Yang is right. Zhaoyu, you have to listen to Uncle Yang's command. Nan Zhaoyu had to accept this arrangement with grievance. Yang Yi wrapped the bandage on his arm and patted Nan Zhaoyu's bandaged arm with satisfaction. Then he held Lan Xian in front of him, and stood up. He looked at Nan Zhaoyu, who was wrapped in bandages as if his arm was broken. He suddenly felt that he was quite talented in this area, and was secretly happy. Also, such a small child, he could only think about it. It was impossible to really break his arm. But this little bastard pulled Shishi's little hand. He couldn't not let Yang Yi have a chance, right? Well, all units get ready, start shooting. Du Yuanlei, who was sitting in front of the monitor, shouted, and the first shooting officially began. Yang Yi and the children stood by the wall of the school hospital hall. Everyone stood around Nan Zhaoyu. Yang Yi also stood at the innermost side, so as not to block the children. Yang Yi didn't think much of it, but he clearly felt that the 5 children's spirits suddenly tensed up when they heard the start of the shooting. The originally curious and expectant smiles disappeared, and all of them looked nervous. Even Shishi was the same. The little girl stared with wide eyes, forgetting that she was acting. She just stared straight at the camera that was pressed on the rail car, and moved over. Cut. After a few seconds, Du Yuanlei shouted to stop. Then she stood up with the board and walked over. Nanyun didn't quite understand. He asked Wu Yu in confusion, "Finished shooting? So fast?" Wu Yu also hadn't shot a movie before, but she didn't think it was finished. She guessed. It shouldn't be finished yet. Maybe it's not good? It was indeed not good. Although Yang Yi told Du Yuanlei that even if the children passed in one take, they could pretend that they couldn't do it and shoot a few more times to let them have fun, Du Yuanlei had to stop. Du Yuanlei didn't want to have any flaws in a 1 or 2 second shot. Is it because it's your first time shooting a movie and you're too nervous? Du Yuanlei was still smiling gently. She gently patted the children on the shoulder and said, "Don't be nervous. Just chat like you usually do. Do what you need to do. Relax a little." The little girls hadn't recovered from their nervous mood just now. They stuck to Yang Yi's side and looked at Du Yuanlei with some fear. And Shishi, don't keep looking at the camera. Although the camera is very cool. Du Yuanlei looked at Shishi and made a rare joke. But think about it. You came to the hospital this time to visit your friend. He's injured. So you should focus on his body, on his arm, right? After Du Yuanlei shouted cut, the little girl, who knew the meaning of cut, hid behind her father, only showing half of her body and face. She was also afraid of being scolded by Du Yuanlei. However, to Shishi's surprise, Sister Du's attitude was very good. She even had a smile on her face and her voice was very gentle. She slowly relaxed and nodded timidly. "Everyone, let's adjust and let go of your nervous emotions first. Then we'll start, okay?" Du Yuanlei showed a patience that had never been seen before in front of the children. This scene made Wang Chao, Guozi, Qinwen, and the others who were watching by the side envious. Guozi couldn't help but mutter, "If only these children had more scenes. I really don't want to be scolded by Director Du again." In order to give the children some space to adjust, Du Yuanlei walked away after saying that. At this time Lan Xian, who had been looking around since the beginning, finally couldn't help but ask, "Shishi, didn't you say that there would be a lot of delicious food in the movie?" "That's right. Why can't I see any delicious food here?" "Delicious food?" Shishi blinked and turned around to look for it. "I want to eat delicious food. I'm so hungry that I don't have any strength." Lan Xian shook Shishi's hand and pouted unhappily. Chen Shiryan also remembered the purpose of her coming here. She also shouted, "I want to eat delicious food. Did you guys finish all the delicious food?" "Shishi is lying. I even said that I would help you guys finish it." This little girl always had this habit of speaking. She would always be a little extreme. Shishi was anxious because of her words. I don't know why the food disappeared. There used to be a lot of food." "Then it's not fun to act in the movie. There's no delicious food," Chen Shiryan muttered. "It's so boring." Lan Xian also nodded. Nan Zhaoyu followed the rest in a low voice and said, "I don't think it's fun either." Shishi was about to cry because of her friend's words. The little girl looked at her father for help. Only then did Yang Yi understand. He finally understood why these children, who had never known what acting was all about, were suddenly so enthusiastic about acting. It turned out that the ulterior motive was not in the wine. He was also like this today. In order to take care of the children and act, he didn't think of bringing anything over. "Well, don't worry. Uncle told you that there's delicious food. Uncle prepared some cakes and drinks." Yang Yi quickly helped his daughter out. "Really? Where is it? Where is the delicious food?" Lan Xian and Chen Shiryan's eyes lit up. "It's still on the way, but there is a rule. You have to act well. Only when the director says it's okay, there will be delicious food. Yang Yi said seriously. Okay then. Let's start quickly. With the encouragement of delicious food, Chen Shiyun's enthusiasm came back. Then you have to act well in the movie, Lan Xian said. Seeing that her friends were no longer blaming her, Shishi breathed a sigh of relief and laughed along with them. Yang Yi found a chance and quickly called the shop. He asked Yang Huan and Ding Xiang to pack all the ready-made cupcakes in the shop and buy some drinks to send over. Although there was the encouragement of delicious food, the children's scenes were still filmed after 9 NGs. It was only a scene of 1 or 2 seconds. Even if they were to film other scenes, including Guizi and Qin Wen who just appeared in the hospital, this scene only lasted for more than 10 seconds. Du Yuanlei was about to collapse. Fortunately, this group of children didn't have any more scenes. Du Yuanlei was relieved and asked Yang Yi to bring the children to another borrowed room for waiting and resting. She still had to shoot another scene of Guizi and Qin Wen in the hall. After filming, Lan Xian and Chen Shiyun finally saw the delicious food that they had been looking forward to for a long time. Several children ran over happily and ate happily. Was it fun to act? Well, you also came over at this time. She smiled and helped her daughter tidy up her hair, and then asked softly. Young Luoqi's cute little mouth was stuffed and she couldn't speak. Nan Zhaoyu, who had not removed the bandage, couldn't eat anything. He found an opportunity to speak and answered quickly, It's not fun at all. Yes, I'm too tired, Chen Shiyun said while eating the cake in her mouth. I'm tired too. Young Luoqi finally swallowed the cake. She looked at her mother pitifully and said, I don't like to act in movies. Then don't act in movies in the future. Let's just eat. Let's go to Shishi's house to eat, Lan Xian said while holding a cake in one hand and said with her mouth full. Yes. Chen Shiyun was so happy that she was beaming with joy. Yang Yi shook his head helplessly. Sure enough, it's a one-sided affair. When Shishi heard what her friends said, she was a little unhappy. She pulled her father's hand and whispered to him. Papa, why did they say it's not fun? Yang Yi squatted down, touched his daughter's little head and said softly, It's normal that they don't like it. Because this scene has to be shot again and again. It's not good if you don't have patience. But I think it's interesting. Shishi pouted her mouth, twisted her waist and said. Yang Yi laughed. That's because our Shishi is patient. You're the best. Hee. Just now Sister Du also said that I'm great. Shishi was praised by her father. She was a little embarrassed, but she was still very happy. She hugged her father's neck and whispered in his ear. You're tuning into the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.